The manga opens with a rough-looking boy, Yuichi, diligently counting his small savings and earnings. From her bed, his mother tells him in a gentle voice that while money is important, there is something far more valuable in the world: friends. This was something that our main protagonist would remember for the rest of his days. Now, after the lesson, years passed away, and this very lesson resonates as a second-year high school student. Yuichi Katajiri finishes an overstretched paper delivering route that could cripple a normal human. His manager, Kita, rewards him with a cold drink, impressed by his hard work and ethic despite his young age. Yuichi explains that old man that he needs to earn a whopping 70,000 yen fee for a school trip next month. When the old man Kita suggests that not going is an option considering his very tough financial condition and situation, Yuichi simply smiles brightly and replies that he can't go back now, because he already promised his friends they would all go together. After his shift, in his classroom, his friend Shibe congratulates him on saving the money but casually remarks that his father could have just lent it to him. Shibe is kind of like that rich kid of the group, and after hearing this from the back, another friend, Shiho, instantly becomes furious, telling Shibe not to treat Yuichi like a charity case or act superior just because his father is a city council member. Just as this silly argument escalates, two other friends, Tenji and Yutori, arrive with light steps. Tenji calmly diffuses the rather unknown and stupid tension that both Shiho and Shibe created, later pointing out that Shibe meant no harm and that they should all be happy that Yuichi can now join them on the trip. Shibe agrees, and Shiho finally decides to start their conversation over. And we can also get a good glances at the most important characters of this story, the only real friends that Yuichi has, and every single one of these people also really love Yuichi a lot. Now this trip was something that every one of them were excited for. They planned almost everything, from what to do to there, and what things to try as a group. This trip meant something memorable and absolutely important for their lives. As the group showed their excitement, each member has their own unique personality. Shibe is the wealthy and athletic class president. Although his rushed comments make him unpopular with girls, he is a kind fellow, with a sharp tongue. Shiho, the tough and reliable vice president, blessed with beauty and charm, she is a force to not take lightly. Due to this, she is the group's moral compass, fiercely protecting her friends. These trials are something that she got from her father, who was a local policeman in the town. Tenji is the genius top student of the entire school, who also acts as their calm mediator. He is similar to a monk that would always start spewing about life lesson. Yutori is the angel-looking girl from their school. Her figure and cute face makes all the boys go crazy for her, but before being a part of this group, she was brutally bullied, and when Shiho stepped in, Yutori was finally able to live normally. That is also the reason for her being close to Shiho. Yuichi, our main protagonist, simply treasures his place within this circle. This is literally everything that he has, and without a care for anyone, he believes that their friendship is unbreakable. At least that's what he thinks until the day where his life flips upside down so bad that everything that he ever loved get questioned, and not only that, he reveals something to everyone that no one ever knew. That day, with a chilling voice, their homeroom teacher declares that the entire trip fund of 2 million yen has been stolen, and the school believes the culprit is a student from their class 2A. 2 million yen was something that every student worked very hard for, and once this news hit the fans, in front of everyone, Shiho and Shibe bow and apologize. Crying like never before, the strong-willed Shiho takes full responsibility of this, and she just breaks down. She began explaining that the money was taken during a self-study period, and while pleading, she begs the culprit to come forward, and constantly vowing to take the blame herself. She insisted that the person who took the money could wait in the classroom after school. But since this was all just not possible, we all can understand that a thief would never sacrifice himself. Yuichi had to leave for his part-time job. Yuichi doesn't see what happens next, but he assumes from the heavy atmosphere that no one ever confesses. The next day, Shiho is absent from school, and the day after, Shibe doesn't come either. Rumors quickly begin to circulate that the two of them, having had the easiest opportunity, stole the trip money. The gossip escalates until Tenji calmly confronts the students, logically defending his friends. He points out that the wealthy Shibe would have no reason to steal, and Shiho, the embodiment of justice, would never do such a thing. The students pondered on this as well, and Tenji exchanges a thumbs up with Yuichi and Yutori, affirming their solidarity. He then tells them the situation is still bad, as their absent friends aren't answering their phones. They all agree to use the upcoming consecutive holidays to visit them. That evening, Yuichi arrives home, determined to finish his work so he can join the visit the next day. His plans are suddenly interrupted when he hears a noise and finds a letter left at his gate. It's from Shiho, with a simple, urgent message adding that they need to talk. The message said that he will wait for him in front of the school gate at 11 p.m. tonight. Without a second thought, Yuichi knows he has to go. Overcome with a bad feeling, Yuichi runs to the school gate, only to find all 4 of his friends already waiting for him. A confusing scene unfolds as Shiho and Shibe reveal that they all received an identical letter, supposedly from Yuichi, asking them to meet for an important talk. Holding the letters, Yuichi realizes with horror that someone has set them up. Before he can react, a figure appears behind him and electrocutes him with a taser. As he collapses, the panicked voices of his friends fade and his vision blurs, flashing with strange images: a pile of money, a laughing man, a crying woman, and his own younger self. He is jolted back to consciousness by Shiho shouting his name. Disoriented, Yuichi sits up to find his face wet with tears that he doesn't remember shedding. He looks around and sees that all 5 of them are now trapped together in a strange, enclosed capsule. Wiping his eyes, his first thought is for his friends, and he immediately asks if they are alright. Tenji confirms that they are alright, but a strange character suddenly appears and wishes them a good morning. Yuichi wonders who he is, and Yutori explains with wide eyes that it is Manabu, a character from an old anime who enjoys stealing precious things from children. Manabu laughs, saying he does not need to introduce himself, and proceeds to explain the super easy game they are about to play to make money. He states that for every game they clear, they will receive 2 million yen, which will help them pay off their 20 million yen debt in no time. The amount shocks Yuichi, who lunges forward, grabs Manabu by the shirt, and demands to know why they would have such a huge debt. Manabu calmly suggests that if Yuichi does not know anything about it, the debt must belong to one of his 4 friends, pointing directly at them. As Yuichi stares in disbelief, Shibe comes from behind and places a hand on his shoulder, prompting him to let go of Manabu. Tenji then steps in to clarify the situation, stating his understanding that one of the 5 of them has a 20 million yen debt, and the only way to clear it is by playing the game. Manabu spreads his hands wide and enthusiastically confirms that he now gets it. Tenji straightens his glasses and calmly tells Manabu that he is a criminal. He argues that even if a debt exists, their abduction and confinement are illegal acts of kidnapping, a point which Shibe and Shiho quickly support. Manabu scoffs at this, claiming that they all wish to participate in the game. He explains that it is a business transaction and reveals they have already received a participation fee of 2 million yen each, which is 10% of the total 20 million yen debt. Everyone's eyes widen in horror as they realize this is the exact amount stolen from their school trip fund, meaning one of them truly is the thief. Manabu taunts them, saying their shocked expressions say it all. Tenji asks what happens if they refuse to play. Manabu lays out their options. They can be released immediately, but the participation fee is non-refundable, and the one with the 20 million debt will be left to face it alone. Alternatively, if they participate, the debt will be divided equally among the 5 of them, leaving each with a debt of 4 million yen that they can reduce by winning games. After giving them 5 minutes to decide, the friends circle up, and Yuichi thinks that the first thing they must do is figure out whose debt it is. As Yuichi begins to ask about the debt, Shiho cuts him off. She insists they should not investigate the culprit now, believing that whichever friend did this must have been desperate and was counting on them for help. Tenji agrees, adding that there must have been a reason they could not consult an adult. Shibe then compares the situation to lending a friend money without asking questions and declares he will gladly accept his 4 million yen share of the debt, a sentiment Shiho and Tenji immediately support because they are friends. Yuichi, however, is frozen in thought, questioning if friendship means they are not allowed to ask for the reason behind such a massive problem. As the others turn to him for his opinion, Manabu suddenly appears and asks if Yuichi is doubting his friends. Yuichi denies it, saying he just wanted to know the reason, but Manabu presses him, asking if he would refuse to help if the reason was stupid. He then cruelly asks Yuichi to choose which of his 4 friends is the scum behind it all, calling them insulting names. Manabu delivers a final, personal blow, suggesting that for Yuichi, money is more important than friends after all. Hearing this, Yuichi looks down, completely unable to speak. Manabu continues to taunt Yuichi, claiming he does not care about the reason for the debt, and just wants to avoid wasting money. He challenges Yuichi to declare what is most important to him. Yuichi states firmly that friends are the most important thing, more important than money. Satisfied with this answer, Manabu opens a gate and announces that they will all participate in the game, leading them to the first stage. As Yuichi follows behind his friends, he thinks to himself that while he was not lying, he knows a terrifying secret that is far beyond what his friends can imagine. They enter a room designed like a classroom, where Tenji notes the scenery outside the window is just an illustration. On a table sits a giant kakuri-san board with a huge 10-yen coin. Manabu introduces their first challenge, the kakuri-san game, and instructs them to pin game tags to their chests. He explains that the back of each tag digitally displays their individual debt, currently 4 million yen each. He gives them a critical rule: they are forbidden from showing this number to anyone else, ever. If they break this rule, their debt will double, an amount Yuichi quickly calculates to be 8 million yen. Tenji seeks clarification, and Manabu confirms that while they cannot physically show the tags, they are permitted to tell each other their debt amount verbally. Shibe remarks that the rule about hiding their debt is not a big deal. Manabu then gathers the 5 friends around the desk for the first game, instructing them to place a finger on the giant 10-yen coin. Shibe notes that the coin is not moving, and Manabu explains that it is currently fixed and suggests a practice round. He asks them a simple question: is Hokkaido the northernmost prefecture of Japan? Yuichi knows the answer is yes, and following Manabu's instructions, they all put strength into the coin when ready. The coin moves to the yes side, and Manabu congratulates them on getting it correct. He explains the core rule: they only succeeded because they were all in unison with their answer. He then reveals the twist: if even one person has a different answer, Kakuri-san will join the minority group. Tenji correctly interprets this to mean that if even one of them is wrong, the coin will not move to the correct answer. Manabu confirms this is precise but reassures them that the questions will be easy and that good friends like them will have no problem agreeing. He adds one final rule: even if their answers are split, they will still clear the game as long as the coin lands on the correct side. Shiho observes that the game is like a true-false quiz where everyone must have the same answer. Manabu then explains the detailed rules. There will be a total of 5 questions, but they only need to get one correct to clear the game. If they succeed, each person's individual debt will be decreased by 4 million yen. He will nominate one person to read each question from an envelope, and that person will also see the correct answer written on the paper. However, to prevent cheating, a strict no-speaking rule will be in effect once the game begins, with only the question reader allowed to talk. Breaking this rule will cause a player's debt to double. Finally, he reveals the penalty for failing to get even one question right. The person who has the most debt when the game is over will have to take on everyone else's debt by themselves. The friends are left completely speechless by this. Manabu offers them some chilling advice, telling them not to worry and to not doubt their friends, as that is the only way to clear the Tomodachi game happily. With a creepy smile, he announces the start of the first game, and Shibe holds up the paper, ready to read the first question. Shibe reads the first question to himself and flinches slightly, a reaction Yuichi notices and assumes means the question is difficult. Shibe then reads it aloud: is Mount Fuji the highest mountain in Japan? Relieved, Yuichi smirks, confident that they have this one, and the friends all exchange smiles, sure that the answer is yes. Manabu instructs them to push the coin, singing a small chant for Kakuri-san to give them the answer. Unaware of the true horror of the game they have just begun, the group watches as the coin moves. Yuichi, however, is not as surprised as everyone else when the coin slides definitively to the nose side. He understands more than anyone just how dreadful money can be. With their wide eyes fixed on the board, Manabu announces that their answer to the first question is incorrect. Shiho jumps to her feet in disbelief, about to shout, but Tenji and Yuichi quickly cover her mouth, silently reminding her that speaking will double her debt. She calms down, and a tense silence falls over the group. Yuichi's mind races, trying to understand what happened. He dismisses the idea of the organizers cheating and arrives at a chilling conclusion: their answers were not unanimous, meaning someone must have pushed the coin to the nose side on purpose. He wonders if one of his friends holds a secret grudge and wants to ruin everyone, even at their own expense. Before he can dwell on this terrifying thought, Manabu announces it is time for the second question, and it is Shiho's turn to read. She opens the letter and asks the question: does 1 + 1 = 2? A wave of relief washes over Yuichi. He decides the first failure must have been a simple mistake caused by someone overthinking. He is certain they cannot possibly mess up such a ridiculously easy question, and his confidence returns, knowing the answer must be yes. Manabu asks if they are ready, and after his chant, the coin once again slides to the no side. He declares their answer incorrect, and Yuichi's mind races, now certain there is a traitor among them. He wonders if it could be Shibe or Shiho, recalling a recent and troubled incident. The story flashes back to Yuichi finding Shibe with a bruised face. Shibe explains that he confessed to Shiho, and she hit him when he tried to kiss her. Tenji overhears this and sternly warns Shibe that forcing a kiss is a crime, refusing to help him patch things up. Shibe then turns to the soft-hearted Yuichi, pleading for him to intervene. Yuichi agrees and later approaches Shiho, who surprises him by saying she is no longer angry with Shibe, but is now angry with Yuichi himself. Flustered, she explains it is because he showed no concern for her at all during the incident. Frustrated by his confusion, she agrees to forgive Shibe on one condition: Yuichi must tell her a secret that none of their other friends know. Back in the present, Yuichi thinks about this complicated memory, trying to understand who would betray them. Yuichi thinks that Shibe and Shiho were supposed to have already patched things up. He realizes that if they could only talk, they might be able to figure out what is wrong, and it dawns on him that the no-speaking rule is not to prevent cheating, but to fuel their anxiety instead. His thoughts are cut short as Manabu calls on Tenji to read the third question. Tenji asks another simple question: is our country called Japan in English? The coin once again slides to no, and Manabu declares the answer incorrect. Sweat drips from Yuichi's face as his heart pounds with fear and doubt. He wonders who the traitor is, why they have the debt, and if they hold a grudge against the others. He tries to calm down by remembering Manabu's advice to not doubt his friends, resolving to stay focused as it becomes his turn for the fourth question. Yuichi opens the envelope, and his hand begins to tremble. The paper instructs him to come up with his own question. He realizes he could ask something incredibly simple, but then he reads the text at the bottom. If the coin goes to yes, the game will be cleared for everyone. If it goes to no, only his own debt will be reduced by half. Yuichi processes the two choices before him. If the coin goes to yes, the game is cleared for everyone. If it goes to no, they fail the question, but his personal debt is cut in half, from 4 million to 2 million yen, which would protect him from the final penalty. Suddenly, he has a horrifying realization. He understands now why all the previous answers were no. The first 3 questions must have had the same secret rule, and his friends deliberately chose to move the coin to the no side in order to reduce their own debts. It all makes sense. He remembers Shibe flinching when he first read the question, not because it was difficult, but because he saw the same tempting offer. Yuichi realizes their strategy. They each asked a simple question where everyone would think yes, then push no by themselves, knowing the coin follows the minority. He understands now that Shibe, Shiho, and Tenji have already cut their debts in half. This is not a simple betrayal. The game forces them to weigh their options, a slight victory for everyone or a guaranteed victory for themselves. They have only 2 choices, friends or money. Yuichi now knows that his friends chose the latter, securing their own safety without caring what would happen to the rest of the group. In a screening room, 2 female supervisors watch the game unfold. One points at Yuichi's screen, excited by his expression, and notes that he is now completely doubting his friends. The other supervisor remarks cynically that it is not so easy, as humans can only endure hardship when everyone else suffers alongside them. Back in the game, Yuichi calculates his options. If he chooses yes, the game will end, and his 4 million yen debt will be cleared. However, he realizes his friends who chose no already reduced their debt and would end up with a profit, making the outcome unfair for him. He thinks that since there is one question left, it should be okay for him to choose no as well. In the screening room, the supervisors see his hesitation, and one reveals a tragic secret. No team has ever cleared this game by letting it get to the 5th question. Yuichi sweats, thinking his friends are unforgivable cowards, but he tries to focus on what is most important. His mind flashes to a memory of his friend Yutori after she was bullied, and him asking if she was okay. The flashback continues, with Yutori confirming to Yuichi that she is still harassed by bullies when she is alone. He apologizes, admitting that unlike their other friends, he never knows the right thing to say to cheer her up. Yutori smiles, telling him he is fine the way he is and reveals a secret. He is the only one she considers a true friend. She feels distant from Shibe, Tenji, and Shiho, who are so bright and act as protectors, which sometimes makes her sad. She points out that he is the only one she feels close enough to call by name without honorifics. Back in the present, this memory solidifies Yuichi's resolve. For his question, he asks if there are 7 days in a week, deciding he will choose yes for Yutori's sake and end the game. In the screening room, the supervisors watch, one of them sighing at how boring it is. As the friends push the coin, Yuichi is certain it will move to yes, but instead, it slides to no for the 4th consecutive time. His hand trembles as the horrifying truth dawns on him. He knows he chose yes, and the question was too simple to get wrong. This means someone chose no, on purpose to ensure they would fail the game. The reason is simple and cruel: the booby penalty. The other 3 questioners already have their debts, so the person with the largest remaining debt is now Yutori. Yuichi realizes the traitor's full plan was not just to reduce their own debt, but to intentionally fail the game from the beginning so the penalty would force the entire debt onto Yutori. He understands the 5th question must be different. In the screening room, the supervisors confirm this, noting that the final question is a normal one without any debt reduction offer, but will be uniquely difficult for the friends in their current state of distrust. Back in the game, Manabu announces the last question, and a nervous Yutori reads it aloud: "We will always be friends now and forever." The supervisors comment that while the answer would have been an easy yes at the start, it is now impossible, as the traitor will certainly vote no, to seal Yutori's fate. Manabu taunts the group, even telling them the correct answer is yes while knowing it will not matter. As they all place their fingers on the coin, the supervisors declare that the round is lost. At that last second, Yuichi suddenly shouts, breaking the no-speaking rule. He asks an absurd question about the color of Shiho's underwear. Everyone freezes in shock at his violation, but a smirk creeps across Yuichi's face, his true plan a complete mystery. Everyone stares in shock as Yuichi seemingly loses his mind. He taunts his friends, poking Shibe and asking if he wants to know the color of Shiho's underwear, since he likes her so much. He points out Shiho's red face and challenges the ever-cool Tenji, asking if he is secretly curious. He tells them he will reveal the answer, but only if they ask him for it, knowing full well that they cannot speak. After mocking their silence, his demeanor suddenly shifts. He laughs, saying it was just a joke and that he knew they would not say a word, as it would risk doubling the debt they have already worked so hard to reduce. He then coldly states that he knows everything, including their plan to fail the game on purpose to trigger the penalty, and push the entire remaining debt onto Yutori. He declares that this will not happen. By breaking the speaking rule, his own debt has now doubled, meaning he, not Yutori, is the one with the most debt. The penalty will now fall on him. He looks at them and says that even if they do not care who the victim is, their plan has failed, because if the game ends now, the biggest loser will be the traitor. Yuichi points to his 3 friends and delivers a stunning bluff, claiming that his rule sheet says the game has changed. The penalty will now be paid by the person with the least amount of debt. In the screening room, the supervisors are shocked. One realizes he is bluffing but is corrected by the other, who explains the genius of the trap. The traitors, who felt safe like hunters aiming at their prey, have now been told that they are the ones being hunted. If they speak up to protest the fake rule, their debt will double, and they will instantly reveal that their debt is lower than the others, outing themselves as the ones who betrayed the group. They are completely paralyzed, unable to speak or move. Yuichi then suddenly drops the act, laughing and saying he was just kidding and trying to lighten the gloomy mood. He states that there cannot be a traitor among them and that he believes in his friends. Apologizing for the interruption, he brings their focus back to the final question: we will always be friends now and forever. He says the answer is easy and that they do not even need to think about it, placing his finger on the coin while confidently stating the answer is yes. Watching this, one of the supervisors observes that his expression is a final warning, a clear message to the traitor that if they do not choose yes now, they will be the one to lose. In the screening room, the supervisors watch excitedly, waiting to see if the traitor will believe Yuichi's lie. Back in the game, the friends place their fingers on the coin, and as Manabu chants, it slides to the yes side. The supervisors cheer, amazed that the group cleared the game from such a desperate situation and praising Yuichi's quick thinking and courage. They note, however, that the price of victory was high. Despite winning, none of the friends are smiling, as the air between them is now thick with the suspicion Yuichi was forced to create. While the first game is officially cleared, Yuichi clenches his fist, knowing their problems are far from over. He thinks about how one of them started with a 20 million yen debt, and that a traitor among them has already tried to reduce their own share by betraying the others. He concludes that they must find the traitors soon, or they will never clear the second game. Just as Manabu begins to lead them to the next stage, Yuichi stops everyone. Ready to take a huge risk, he looks at his friends and asks a direct question, "How much is your debt now?" Shibe reacts angrily to Yuichi's question, demanding to know if he is really doubting them after saying he was joking. Yuichi calmly tells him not to get upset, as such a strong reaction only makes him look more suspicious. Tenji agrees with Yuichi, stating that it is dangerous to proceed to the next game while they are still doubting each other, so they should confirm their debts. One by one, each of the friends announces their remaining debt, and they all claim to have the same amount, 3.6 million yen. Tenji challenges Yuichi, asking if he still does not believe them, but Yuichi quickly backs down, saying he is glad and that they should all forget what happened and believe in each other for the second game. As Manabu begins to lead them out, Yuichi suddenly stops, using an untied shoelace as an excuse to let the others go on ahead. Once he is alone, his true thoughts surface. He does not believe them at all and is determined to confirm the truth for himself. He immediately begins to collect the discarded question sheets from the game table. In the screening room, one supervisor notes that Yuichi seems to have figured something out. The other explains his plan. Since no one spoke during the game, the question sheets are the only evidence that can reveal the flow of money and who lied about their debt. Back in the game room, Yuichi examines the papers. He confirms that the first sheets, including his own and Shibe's, all had the same instruction to create a question. He also sees that Yutori's sheet had a fixed question, just as he predicted. He then searches for the most crucial piece of evidence, the secret rule about reducing one's debt on a no vote, but he is shocked to find that the text has completely disappeared from the paper. In the screening room, the supervisors revealed the final trick. They knew someone might try to hide the evidence, so they wrote the debt reduction rule in a special ink that vanishes after the sheet is exposed to light for a certain period of time. Yuichi clenches the blank papers, realizing he just avoided a trap. If he had shown the sheets to the others as proof, the vanished text would have made him look like a liar, and he would have been instantly isolated. His dark thoughts are interrupted by Shiho, who tells him he looks scary and that she stayed behind to talk with him alone. She asks him plainly if he believes there is a traitor among them, quickly adding that she is certain there is one and that his stunt in the game saved them. She presses him, saying she knows he was not really joking and demands to know who he finds most suspicious. Yuichi meets her gaze and tells her that the most suspicious person is Shiho herself. He explains that her immediate suggestion to not investigate the culprit goes against her entire justice-loving character. The Shiho he knows would never forgive a friend for stealing the trip money and would hunt the culprit to the very end. Clenching her fist, Shiho admits he has a point, but then makes a stunning confession of her own. She apologizes and reveals that she suspected him, Yuichi, of being the one who stole the money. He stares in shock as a tearful Shiho explains that because money was involved, she immediately thought of him. Hurt and angry, Yuichi asks if it is because he is poor and has no parents, and if she only decided not to pursue the culprit because she felt sorry for him. Shiho insists she was not looking down on him, but Yuichi gets angry and demands to know the real reason she covered for him. Blushing, she confesses that it is because she likes him. He stares in shock as she explains that she has always had feelings for him and was terrified that if he turned out to be the culprit, pursuing him in front of everyone would destroy everything between them. Understanding now, Yuichi comforts her, patting her hair and telling her not to cry. He says he no longer doubts her, reasoning that she would never risk her own debt to protect him if she were only playing for money. He then changes the subject, asking why she is now so desperate to find the traitor. With trembling hands, Shiho says she is scared and asks him his current debt amount. After she assumes it is 3.6 million yen, Yuichi explains that his debt was also halved but then doubled again when he broke the speaking rule, returning it to the original amount minus the prize money. Shiho then asks him to keep a secret, and reveals her own shocking truth. Her debt is not 3.6 million, but 7.6 million yen. Yuichi is stunned, realizing that for her debt to be so high, it must have doubled at some point from the original 4 million. Shiho continues, explaining that when she almost spoke after the first question, the game counted it as a rule violation, and her debt secretly doubled to 8 million yen. She admits she lied about her total because she was terrified of the booby penalty. Yuichi deduces that her question sheet must not have had the debt reduction rule, and she confirms she voted yes on the second question. With this new information, Yuichi realizes that if Shiho is telling the truth, the traitor can only be Shibe or Tenji. Shiho tells Yuichi that his final, risky move was not just to protect Yutori, but also to protect her. She expresses how happy and relieved she was to be able to rely on him and makes a firm promise: they will help each other, she will always believe in him, and they will clear the game together. Yuichi agrees. In the screening room, the supervisors find this new development interesting. One notes that while Yuichi is good at seeing through people when money is involved, that alone is not enough to win. The camera then reveals a shocking twist. Tenji is standing just behind the door, having secretly listened to their entire conversation. The supervisor smiles, saying she is looking forward to the second game, a backbiting version of Snakes and Ladders. Shiho pledges to Yuichi that she likes him, will always believe in him, and will never betray him so they can clear the game together. Yuichi accepts her trust and tells her he plans to try a few tricks in the next game, asking her to remain silent no matter how suspicious his actions may seem. She agrees just as Shibe bursts in, annoyed that they were taking so long and teasing them about having a secret conversation. Shiho's flustered denial only makes Shibe more suspicious, but Tenji suddenly intervenes, lightly hitting them both on the head. He scolds them, explaining that the tense situation is making everyone paranoid and that they must avoid secrecy to protect their friendship. The group then proceeds together to the second venue, which appears to be a rooftop. There, Manabu greets them and angrily corrects Shibe for not addressing him with the proper honorific. He then gives a speech, saying he is worried about the secrets they all keep from one another, and that today, they will reveal everything. Under the clear blue sky, he officially announces the start of the second game, Backbiting Sugoroku. As the friends look down, they see a game board made of large tiles. Shibe asks if this is different from regular Sugoroku, and Manabu confirms that it is. He explains that while a regular game depends on the luck of a dice roll, this version is different. Here, the one who rolls the dice is the one who exposes their friend's secrets. He states that the more dirty secrets a player reveals, the better their position becomes, and the faster they can send their friends to hell and win the game. A shocked Yuichi processes the cruel premise. Manabu then details the rules. Players will use a backbiting paper to write a friend's secret and submit it to him. He will announce the secret to everyone, and they will vote on how impactful it is. The number of votes a secret receives determines how many spaces the player moves. When Shibe asks who everyone is, Manabu reminds them of his earlier statement that the gods are watching. He reveals that their fate actually depends on viewers who have invested money in the game. Looking up at what appear to be their comments, these customers, he declares, are the gods. Manabu reminds the group that this is a business, and initiates a practice round with some fake secrets he has prepared. He announces that Shibe wears a wig, Shiho has athlete's foot, Yuichi is secretly rich, Yutori has a G-cup, and Tenji's glasses are fake. The friends react with chaos. Shiho becomes flustered as she tries to deny the athlete's foot rumor, and when Shibe tries to comfort her by saying he would still love her, she hits him. She then turns to Yutori, who shyly admits her secret is only slightly off. Shibe once again tries to be charming and gets hit for his trouble. Manabu interrupts them to call for the vote from the gods. A question appears for the viewers: who is the most unforgivable one among them? After the votes are cast, Manabu announces the results. In first place with 53% of the vote is Shibe, who moves 5 steps forward. In second place is Yuichi with 26%, moving 4 steps, and in third is Shiho with 12%, moving 3 steps. Manabu continues with the results, announcing that Tenji is in fourth place with 7% and moves 2 steps, while Yutori is last with 2% and moves 1 step. He then summarizes the game's loop. A participant submits a secret on the backbiting paper. The host announces it. The viewers or gods cast their votes. The results are announced, and the participant moves forward. This process repeats, and players can submit as many secrets as they want, targeting anyone. Manabu praises Tenji for his quick understanding of the system, but then reveals a shocking twist. While the person whose secrets are exposed the most will reach the goal first, reaching the goal is actually the worst outcome, and means that player will suffer the most harm. He explains that when someone reaches the goal, the game is cleared, and everyone's debt is reduced. However, the real prize is for those who finish the game without crossing the goal line. They will receive a bonus of 1 million yen, will not have to participate in the third game, and will be allowed to go home for a while. Hearing this, Yutori's mind immediately fixates on the thought that she might finally be able to go home. Manabu continues, adding that the third game will be tough and painful, and there is another secret penalty for the person who reaches the goal first. He summarizes the twisted strategy. The best way to win is to expose your friend's secrets as much as possible, causing them to advance, take the fall, and be sent to hell. Shiho shouts that the game is not fun at all. Manabu then tells her she has the option of leaving the backbiting paper blank. Yutori asks what would happen if none of them wrote anything, and Manabu explains that in that case, they would all move one step forward together. If they reach the goal at the same time this way, however, they will only get the basic prize money and will all have to participate in the third game. Shiho says she does not mind, but Manabu points out the risk. If even one person betrays the group and writes a secret, those who submitted blank sheets will suffer the most. At that moment, Yuichi places a hand on Shiho's shoulder and confidently states that no one there will betray the others. He then asks for a final clarification, and Manabu confirms that unlike the first game, they are allowed to speak freely this time. Yuichi turns to Shiho, reassuring her that since they can speak this time, they can get through the games safely by communicating. A blushing Shibe jumps in and enthusiastically agrees, saying they are all pals. Manabu, however, reveals another rule. Whether a player writes a secret or not, they must enter a private stall for 3 minutes to submit their paper. Yuichi immediately realizes this makes it impossible to know if anyone is truly submitting a blank page. Tenji then asks what happens if someone writes a complete lie. Manabu confirms that lying is a valid but risky strategy to make friends look bad. If a player is caught in a lie, they will receive a divine punishment and be forced to take first place. With the rules explained, Manabu starts the game. Shiho gives a passionate speech, vowing that no matter how much the game tries to shake them, they will cross the finish line together to protect their friendship. In the screening room, the supervisors watch with anticipation. One of them cynically compares their promise to a marathon, stating that there is no way they will all still be running together at the end. In the screening room, the supervisors watch cynically, wondering how long the friends will stick together before they betray each other in this hopeless game. For the first round, the friends all submit blank papers and move one step forward together. Their unity is short-lived, however, as they discover a hidden penalty on the square, a debt of 100,000 yen. Shibe shouts in anger that they were never told about this, but Manabu cheekily replies that he only said the game was mostly like regular Sugoroku. Yuichi quickly calculates that if they continue this way, they will add 6 million yen to their debt. They try the same cooperative strategy for the second round, only to land on another penalty square, this time a bizarre one costing 500,000 yen. Manabu mocks their pale faces, noting that their debt has already increased by 600,000 yen after only 2 steps. He then says he has good news and finally reveals the secret penalty for the one who reaches the goal first. All of the debt accumulated from the penalty squares during the game will be transferred to the person who crosses the finish line. Manabu taunts them, explaining that the first person to finish will now have a debt of over 3 million yen, and asks if they still think it is a good idea to cross the line together. Shiho shouts for everyone not to get flustered, correctly identifying it as a tactic to break them apart, and Shibe reassures her of his support. The third round begins, and this time, someone has submitted a paper with a secret on it. In the screening room, the supervisors note that this betrayal happened faster than they thought, remarking that even a small bomb can be enough to destroy a relationship. Manabu begins to read the secret, which says that Shiho likes Yuichi. He then claims there is more, adding that she also has dated Tenji in the past. The revelation causes immediate chaos. Shibe completely snaps, and Yuichi looks on in confusion, while Shiho says nothing and Tenji simply straightens his glasses, his expression unreadable. In the screening room, the supervisors analyze the new development. One notes that romantic interests are the most common friendship breaker and lays out the destructive love triangle. Shibe likes Shiho, Shiho likes Yuichi, and Yuichi treasures his friendship with Shibe, all further complicated by Shiho's past relationship with Tenji. Back in the game, Manabu calls for the vote on the explosive secret. The result is obvious, with 100% of the votes going to Shiho, as she was the one who was backbitten. Manabu announces that Shiho must move 5 steps forward, while the rest of the group moves only 1. The squares they land on have different effects. Shiho's square has a 500,000 yen penalty, while the other 4 land on a trick square that results in no change to their debt, prompting Yuichi to note that nothing happening is also a possibility. With the round over, Manabu tells them they have some free time, taunting them by saying that they surely have a lot to discuss now. Shibe immediately walks toward Shiho, demanding to know if what was said about her feelings is true. Yuichi tries to stop him, but Shibe turns his anger on him, accusing him of knowing about Shiho's crush all along and making a fool out of him. Tenji steps in, telling Shibe that his jealousy is unsightly, which only makes him angrier. Tenji then escalates the conflict by claiming it is his business because he is Shiho's ex-boyfriend and has known her much longer. Shiho shouts for them to stop and decides to explain everything directly to Yuichi. She reveals that she and Tenji are childhood friends, as their fathers were also close. Their parents had arranged for them to be married, and because her father is so stubborn, they had no choice but to pretend to be a couple in front of their families. This only ended 2 years ago, when Tenji's father passed away, after which they lost touch until meeting again by chance in high school. She explains they kept it a secret because they did not want to bring up the painful topic of Tenji's late father. Shibe's mood lightens as he dismisses Tenji's connection to Shiho, declaring their relationship was fake. He turns to Manabu to argue that the secret about them dating must therefore be a lie, a point which Manabu says is tricky. Shiho quickly insists there was never any romance between them, but she is immediately contradicted by Tenji. He states that for him there was romance, and in a stunning confession, he tells Shiho that he has always liked her and still loves her even now. He then turns his pent-up anger on Shibe, and Yuichi watches in shock, realizing he has never seen the calm Tenji look like this before. Tenji tells Shibe that his thoughtless actions towards Shiho have always made him sick, especially when he tried to kiss her. When Shibe asks why he never said anything, Tenji explains that he stayed silent because he knew Shiho was in love with Yuichi, and he did not want to make her sad by confessing. He ends his tirade by accusing Shibe of being so obvious and self-absorbed that he never thinks about how his actions might hurt other people. Shibe shouts at Tenji, accusing him of using the backbiting paper to confess his feelings for Shiho. Tenji calmly asks if Shibe himself was the one who wrote it, but Shibe insists that only Tenji and Shiho knew about their past. Tenji calls Shibe simple-minded, explaining that he would never write a secret that so obviously pointed back to him, because unlike Shibe, he thinks before he acts. Infuriated by the insult, Shibe grabs Tenji by the collar and demands to know why Tenji would suspect him. Tenji calmly explains his theory that Shibe's motive was simple jealousy. He speculates that Shibe must have heard rumors about Shiho liking Yuichi and her past relationship with Tenji, and was so desperate to know the truth that he used the backbiting paper to force all the secrets out into the open. Tenji concludes that Shibe could not stand being just an ordinary friend while Yuichi and Tenji both had a special connection with Shiho. Just as Shibe is about to punch Tenji, Yuichi jumps between them, shouting for them to stop. He tells them that quarreling is pointless and that if they both truly like Shiho, they should stop doing things that make her sad. He convinces them to put the matter aside until the game is over. Nearby, Yutori comforts Shiho, summarizing the complicated love triangle and telling Shiho she is so amazing that any man would fall for her. When Yuichi calls for them to join the group, Shiho remains frozen, unable to move. In the screening room, the supervisors discuss who could have submitted the backbiting letter. They identify Shibe as the most suspicious, reasoning that his jealousy over Shiho's feelings for Yuichi and her past with Tenji provides a strong motive. Their next suspect is Tenji, as he had the specific knowledge of their past relationship. Finally, they consider a third possibility. The only other person who knew all the secrets on the paper was Shiho herself. In the screening room, the supervisors speculate. They agree that Yuichi is planning something and that Yutori is the least suspicious, which means at least one of the friends is a very good liar and actor. Back in the game, Yuichi gathers the group and suggests they get a fresh start and trust each other again, a sentiment a supervisor scoffs at, thinking that broken trust can never be recovered in this game. The fourth round begins, and Yuichi goes into the stall first, claiming to submit a blank paper. The others appear to follow his lead, but their hope is shattered when Manabu announces that 3 backbiting entries were submitted. He reads the secrets aloud. Shibe bathed with his mother until middle school. Yuichi once went a week without bathing, and Shiho had plastic surgery. Before they can react, the viewers vote, and Shiho's secret is deemed the most unforgivable. As a result, Shiho moves 5 steps, Yuichi moves 4, and Shibe moves 3, with their debts increasing based on the penalty squares they land on. After a tense silence, Shibe confronts Shiho, asking if the secret about her was a lie. She looks at him coolly and asks what if it was true. Tenji is left confused as Shiho silences him and continues to press Shibe, asking if he would stop being her friend if she really had plastic surgery. Shibe is left completely speechless. In the screening room, the supervisors philosophize that friendship is a calculated relationship based on benefits, and predict that those who valued Shiho for her beauty will now abandon her. Back in the game, Yutori approaches Shiho and vows to always be her friend, surgery or not. When Shiho smiles gratefully, Yutori's expression changes, and she takes the smile as a confession that the rumor is true. Manabu then interrupts to begin the 5th round, announcing there is one explosive backbiting entry. He reads the secret aloud, that Yutori went on paid dates in middle school. Horrified, Yutori immediately screams at Shiho, accusing her of writing it and calling her a liar, saying she was the only one who knew that secret. As their friendship shatters, the true traitor thinks to themselves that they need to break even more bonds, otherwise stealing the trip money to start the Tomodachi game will have been for nothing. Yutori is left traumatized by the reveal of her secret, a state made worse by Shibe's cruel taunts that she must have sold her body. Enraged by the comments, Tenji punches Shibe in the face, telling him to shut up and never speak of Yutori that way again. He then turns to Yuichi and tells him to take care of Yutori. When Yuichi hesitates, unsure of what to do, Tenji tells him to just stay by her side while the rest of them stay away until she has calmed down. Manabu uses the chaotic moment to summarize the results. Yutori was the sole victim of the backbiting, so she moves 5 steps forward while everyone else moves 1. Yuichi gently asks Yutori if she is okay. She looks at him and begins to tell her story, explaining that she desperately needed money back then. She reveals that she was severely bullied in middle school, and it was a bitter experience she endured every day. She did not want to cause trouble for her mom, so she kept going to school even after her friends abandoned her and a teacher was unable to help. She explains that there was only one way to stop the bullying: she had to give them money. With tears in her eyes, Yutori continues her story to Yuichi. She explains that giving money to her bullies was her only protection, but her allowance was not enough. She decided the only way to earn the money she needed was to go on paid dates. She recounts how it started innocently with meals and karaoke, but the man's requests soon escalated to cosplay and photo shoots. The situation turned when he told her he wanted to just touch her, repeatedly reassuring her that he had never lied to her before. Yuichi interrupts, asking if the man took advantage of her. Crying, Yutori explains that she got scared and ran away before anything happened. Manabu cruelly interjects, telling her that no one believes her and points up to a screen showing a flood of hateful comments from the viewers. Yutori breaks down, pleading with Yuichi and insisting that she never crossed that line and is still a virgin. She tells him that if he leaves her now, she will truly be all alone. In the screening room, the supervisors watch coolly. One offers a cynical analysis, stating that the more virtuous a person is, the more they will care about the perceived dirt on others. In the screening room, the supervisors continue their analysis. One explains that people who believe themselves to be pure and flawless cannot forgive the mistakes of others. They conclude that whether Yuichi forgives Yutori will depend entirely on if he is aware that he himself is also dirty. Back in the game, Yuichi looks at the crying Yutori and tells her that regardless of her past, he will never leave her side. As her eyes fill with more tears, he leans in and whispers something in her ear. He pulls back with a smile, and she seems to nod in understanding. The supervisors watch, unable to hear but speculating on what he said. They agree on one thing: he has forgiven her completely, which means Yuichi must be aware of his own dark past. Yuichi then asks Yutori if she can keep going. She hesitantly stands up and says she can, as long as they are together. She adds, however, that she does not want to be near Shiho for the time being. Hearing this, Shiho cries out, asking why Yutori is blaming her and insisting that she was not the one who wrote the secret. Scared, Yutori hides behind Yuichi, saying that while Shiho might be innocent, she just cannot be near her for now. Tenji approaches the upset Shiho, who explains to him how she knew Yutori's secret in the first place. She recounts how she once saved Yutori from bullies who shouted that Yutori would do anything for money. When she asked about it later, a crying Yutori told her the whole story, and Shiho promised to never tell anyone, a promise that sealed their new friendship. Tenji reassures Shiho that he believes her, stating that as her childhood friend, he knows her straightforward and honest nature better than anyone. Shibe watches this close interaction with a look of jealousy. In the screening room, the supervisors observe the tangled mess of emotions. One notes that on top of all this natural chaos, there is a person among the friends who is deliberately trying to destroy their relationships. The traitor's true purpose is revealed in a chilling inner monologue. Their goal was never to cover a debt, but to destroy their friendship completely. The story then shifts to a flashback of the classroom during the self-study period when the money was stolen. A frustrated Shiho shouts at her rowdy classmates to be quiet after collecting the trip funds. In her rush to get to the staff room, she puts a key into a locker, and after a distinct click, she leaves. Nearby, Shibe looks for homework to copy but sees Yuichi is asleep at his desk and decides not to wake him, figuring he is tired from work. After getting the notes from someone else, Shibe sits down to concentrate. Later, in the now empty classroom, he accidentally bumps into a girl, sending their books and stationery scattering across the floor. The girl apologizes profusely and kneels to help, but Shibe tells her it is alright. She then looks up at him with wide eyes, points to her manga drawings now spread all over the ground, and asks if he saw them. The flashback continues with the girl, Yutori, confessing her secret hobby of drawing manga to the boy Tenji. As he reassures her, a pouch full of money is visible in his hand, and he states that his business is now done. Yutori notices he is bleeding near his eye from the collision, but he dismisses it, saying his glasses will hide any scar. The scene shifts to a later time, where Shiho points out that same scar near Tenji's eye. The story then plunges into Tenji's internal monologue, where he is revealed as the true traitor. He admits to himself that he was the one who stole the 2 million yen. He thinks about the secrets he has exposed, revealing that he knew Shiho's surgery was only to remove a scar and that he was the one who wrote about it. He confesses to knowing everything because he has been secretly watching and listening to all of them, even hearing Shiho's private conversation with Yutori. He reveals his horrifying true motive: he wants to destroy all of Shiho's relationships and break her completely. He happily imagines the moment she is left all alone, so that he can be the one to gently call out to her. Shiho frantically insists that she is not the one who revealed Yutori's secret. Tenji interrupts her with a reassuring smile, telling her that he believes her. Internally, however, he knows he is the one who submitted all the most damaging secrets. He speculates that the other 2 entries were likely from Shibe and Yuichi, who were clumsily trying to help Shiho by backbiting each other. Relieved, Shiho asks Tenji who he thinks the culprit is. His demeanor suddenly changes as he grabs her shoulders, scolding her for looking for a culprit, and warning her that such suspicion will prevent their friendship from ever healing. A chastened Shiho apologizes. Inside his mind, Tenji celebrates his calculated move, having already destroyed Shiho's friendship with Yutori. He then softens his tone, telling Shiho that he is her ally. Leaning in close, he whispers a final, poisonous suggestion, planting the idea that Yutori might have been the one to submit the secret about herself. Shiho reacts in disbelief, but Tenji calmly continues to plant the seeds of doubt. He suggests a theory, that Yutori also loves Yuichi but, lacking confidence, knew she could not compete with Shiho fairly. He proposes that Yutori's plan was to expose her own secret to win Yuichi's sympathy while simultaneously framing Shiho for the betrayal. When Shiho says he is going too far, Tenji changes tactics, claiming he feels sorry for the kind-hearted Yuichi. He explains that Yuichi is so innocent that he would feel obligated to protect a vulnerable girl like Yutori, even if he likes someone else, and could never be truly happy. Shiho reluctantly agrees this might be true and asks why he is telling her all of this. He smiles, saying it is because he is her ally and does not want to see her get hurt. As she leaves to think, Tenji laughs to himself. He knows it is not enough to completely destroy her friendship with Yutori, but he has successfully lit the fuse. He ends with a final, twisted thought, calling Yuichi a sinful man for causing so much turmoil. Manabu tells the group to stop flirting and continue the game. At Yutori's request, Tenji goes into the submission stall first. Inside, he reconsiders his plan. Realizing it would look suspicious if no secrets were written about him, he decides on a new strategy: to write a backbiting entry against himself to manipulate the game's flow and avoid suspicion. After submitting his paper, he waits the required 3 minutes before exiting. He steps out to the shocking sound of a slap and sees that Yuichi has just hit Shiho. A stunned Tenji asks what is going on. Yuichi apologizes to Shiho but says it was her fault, angrily stating there is no way Yutori would submit a secret against herself. Internally, Tenji wonders if Shiho already repeated the poisonous theory he planted in her mind. Shiho retorts that Yuichi does not understand, and that women will do anything to get what they want, even cheat. She then turns to a silent Yutori and asks her if she is right. With tears in her eyes, Yutori agrees with Shiho's bitter statement, adding a sharp comment about a certain someone who would go under the knife to be more beautiful. Tenji watches this exchange, secretly pleased. Shiho explains that she never talked about her surgery because she did not want to remember it, clarifying that it was to remove a scar, not for vanity. She warns Yutori that if she continues to use it against her, their trust will be broken forever. Yutori dismisses her, saying she only cares if Yuichi believes her. She turns to Yuichi with pleading eyes, reminding him that he promised to believe her no matter what, and he quietly agrees. Enraged by his choice, Shiho clenches her teeth. Tenji watches the scene and thinks to himself that it is over. His plan has worked perfectly. The friendship between Shiho and Yutori has completely collapsed, and as Yuichi's bond with Yutori strengthens, his relationship with Shiho is turning sour. He is delighted that the fuse he lit has exploded so spectacularly and muses to himself about how hostile even Yutori can become, concluding that women certainly change when men are involved. Tenji approaches Shiho and apologizes, but she says it is not his fault. She explains she was only trying to clear up the misunderstanding about her surgery, but she snapped when Yutori would not listen, and now she does not want to talk to her anymore. Tenji puts a hand on her shoulder and pledges that just as Yuichi has chosen to believe Yutori no matter what, he will always believe Shiho. She smiles gratefully at his words. Inwardly, Tenji celebrates this moment, noting that Shiho is starting to open her heart to him instead of Yuichi, which will make his next trap even more effective. Manabu then calls for the 6th round to begin. One by one, the friends enter the submission stall in order, first Yutori, then Yuichi, then Shiho, and finally Shibe. After everyone is finished, Manabu announces that for this round, there are 2 backbiting entries. The news shocks the group, and Tenji thinks to himself that he submitted one, wondering who else did. Manabu reads the first secret, that Shiho wears boys' briefs. Shiho turns to shout at Yutori, but Tenji calms her, thinking to himself that this is simply Yutori's revenge. Manabu then reads the second secret, that Tenji is lying about his age. Tenji calmly confirms he is a year older, having dropped out and restarted high school. He then adds that the only person who knew this was his childhood friend, Shiho. Everyone stares in shock as suspicion falls back on Shiho, who desperately denies writing it. Tenji pulls her aside, reminding her of his promise to believe her but warning that she is being isolated. He tells her to stay close to him so he can protect her, and she hesitantly agrees. Internally, he celebrates, thinking she will not be able to oppose him anymore. Manabu then announces the vote results. Shiho's secret receives 61%, moving her 5 steps, while Tenji's gets 39%, moving him 4 steps. Now a full 18 steps ahead of everyone, Shiho is told by Manabu that she has earned a special chance, leaving her and Tenji to wonder what that could mean. Manabu explains the special chance. The first person to step on that square, Shiho, can nominate one person from the group. The game organizers will then investigate that person and reveal one of their dirty secrets to everyone. After a vote from the viewers, the nominated person will move forward. In his mind, Tenji panics, realizing that if he is chosen, his secret of stealing the money and starting the game will be exposed, ruining all his plans. He tries to calm himself, thinking the chances are low, as she could nominate the ambiguous Yutori, the last place Shibe, or even Yuichi, the boy she likes. He initially feels safe because he is her ally, but then a horrifying thought occurs to him. The safest person to choose is the one you trust the most, as a truly innocent person would have no secret to reveal. As if reading his mind, Shiho comes to the same conclusion and turns towards Tenji. Horrified that his plan has backfired, he braces himself. At the last second, however, Shibe steps in front of Shiho, telling her to choose him instead. A confused Shiho asks him why. Shibe explains that he has been quiet because he was thinking. He says he feels bad for hurting everyone with his thoughtless words and that even if this does not make up for it, he still wants to be their friend. Internally, Tenji scoffs at this, thinking Shibe is just trying to score points. Shibe insists that he has nothing to hide and tells Shiho to nominate him. She agrees and informs Manabu of her choice, and a relieved Tenji thinks to himself that the cheap move has saved him. Manabu asks Shibe if he is sure he has nothing to worry about, then announces that they have found a secret. Footage of Shibe's father, the city council member, appears on the screens. Manabu lists his crimes, including sexual harassment, accepting bribes, and election fraud, before calling him scum. Shibe collapses to the ground in shock. While Tenji laughs to himself, already thinking of how to use this information, Shiho rushes to Shibe's side. She tells him not to worry, assuring him that his father's crimes have nothing to do with him, and that she will not hate him for it. Shibe smiles at Shiho's words, but Tenji steps between them, telling her to get away. Internally, Tenji thinks that his friendship with Shibe is now completely broken, so he will provoke him without holding back. He begins a manipulative speech, finding it suspicious that Shibe was so confident in nominating himself. He argues that a truly honest person would never be so certain they have nothing to hide and plants a seed of doubt, suggesting that perhaps Shibe is only confident because his wealthy father has always covered up his wrongdoings. When Shiho tells him he is going too far, Tenji claims Shibe was simply showing off. Before anyone can respond, Tenji delivers his final blow. He connects the game's original 20 million yen debt to the scandals of Shibe's father, asking Shibe if he is sure he has nothing to do with it. Stunned by this powerful speculation, the friends all instinctively back away from Shibe, leaving him completely isolated. Shibe shouts for his friends to listen, but no one does, leaving him to curl up on the ground in despair. Tenji smirks, thinking to himself how well his plan worked and how unsightly the failed hero now looks. Manabu then announces the result of the vote. Shibe is deemed 99% unforgivable and moves 9 steps forward, putting him in second place. Tenji plots his next move, confident that one more secret will finish Shibe off for good. The 7th round begins, and Manabu announces there is only one entry, a secret so shocking that even he is taken aback. He reads it aloud. The truth is that Shibe has killed someone. Everyone is stunned, especially Tenji. He thinks to himself that he did not write that. He had submitted a blank paper to avoid suspicion. This means someone else is playing the game, but he does not know who or what they are after. His eyes then drift over to Yuichi, and seeing his expression, a new and terrible thought enters Tenji's mind. Perhaps Yuichi is the one who wrote it. In a dark internal monologue, Tenji thinks that he has the right to take everything from Shiho, her smile, her confidence, and her friends, because she took the most important thing from him. His thoughts then turn to Yuichi, who is always getting in his way, and he resolves to crush him. In the game, Manabu asks Shibe if the murder accusation is true. A frantic Shibe shouts that of course it is not, and it is obviously a lie. Tenji, however, is lost in thought. He is certain Yuichi wrote the entry but cannot figure out his plan, a fact that deeply frustrates him. He then realizes the trap. If the backbiting is proven to be a lie, Yuichi will receive the divine punishment and be forced into first place. At that moment, Shibe demands that Manabu punish the liar right away. Manabu taunts him, saying that he must first prove that it is a lie. An incredulous Shibe shouts that they can go ahead and search for his criminal record. Manabu points out that Shibe's powerful father could have easily covered up any criminal record. He tells a desperate Shibe that his only option is to plead for mercy from the gods and let them vote on his innocence. Shibe makes a pathetic plea, foolishly admitting that his father has always taken care of his troubles for him, which only makes him seem more guilty. Unsurprisingly, 99% of the viewers vote that they do not believe him. As a result, Manabu announces that Shibe must move 5 steps forward, landing him in the worst position, first place. As this unfolds, one of the friends realizes that proving a lie is nearly impossible in this game, and wonders if Yuichi had anticipated this all along. Yuichi then approaches the devastated Shibe, telling him that he believes in his innocence. He turns to the rest of the group and makes a stunning declaration. He now knows there is a traitor among them who is trying to destroy their friendship on purpose, and he knows who that person is. Hearing this, Tenji's face breaks out in a sweat as he panics, thinking he has been busted. Yuichi explains that the malicious entry against Shibe proves there is a traitor among them who has been submitting all the radical entries to make them fight. Internally, Tenji analyzes this, theorizing that Yuichi himself must have submitted the entry to create a common enemy and reunite the group, which means he must be bluffing about knowing the traitor's identity. He quickly dismisses this comforting thought, however, reminding himself that Yuichi is not simple-minded like Shibe and that he must remain cautious. His panic returns when Shibe bluntly asks Yuichi to name the traitor. Tenji freezes, realizing any attempt to stop the question would make him look guilty. Yuichi, however, simply says that he cannot tell them just yet. He then makes a more stunning declaration: he does not need to tell them anymore, because he has figured out a way to beat the game itself. The statement leaves everyone, especially a bewildered Tenji, in complete shock. Yuichi begins to explain his plan. He says that something has been bothering him since the start of the second game. It is extremely unfair. He points out that even when they cooperated and submitted blank papers, their debt increased by a huge amount after only 2 squares, while the prize for clearing the game is comparatively small. He argues that while they must accept some unfairness, a completely one-sided game would be boring for the audience that is watching them. He reasons that since the Tomodachi game is a business meant to entertain, there must be a hidden layer of fairness to keep it interesting. Yuichi explains that this speculation became a conviction when he remembered a key detail he missed during the chaos of the 6th round. He reveals that there was a square where a debt was actually reduced. Yutori's debt had decreased by 200,000 yen. He reminds them that Manabu said the game was otherwise like regular Sugoroku, and concludes that just as there are minus squares, there must also be plus squares, and that is the game's hidden fairness. Yuichi finishes his explanation, concluding that the game was designed so that if they had believed in each other and moved 1 square at a time from the start, their debt would have eventually become 0. In the screening room, the supervisors confirm that he is correct, explaining that the board is filled with penalties in the first half and rewards in the second. They note, however, that it is too late for the group to fix their positions now that they are split up, especially with a traitor among them. Tenji also realizes this flaw, thinking to himself that even if they cooperate now, the person in the lead, Shibe, will still reach the goal first and incur the penalty. Yuichi then says that the most annoying part of the game is its anonymity, which allows the traitor to act freely. He then reveals his new, shocking strategy. He tells everyone that from now on, everyone except for the person currently in the lead will submit a backbiting entry, leaving his friends completely stunned by the radical plan. Yuichi continues, insisting his plan can win them the game. When Shiho worries it will only make things worse, he reveals the key detail: they will all write backbiting entries against themselves. He explains the new promise: everyone except the person in the lead must submit a secret about themselves. If the traitor breaks the pact and writes an entry against someone else, they will be instantly exposed. This method effectively turns the anonymous submissions into signed ballots, making it impossible for the traitor to act without being caught. Shiho understands, realizing this is why he did not need to name the traitor. Yuichi admits the strategy is not perfect, but he stresses that at least this way, they do not have to hurt each other anymore. He makes a final, emotional appeal, blaming the traitor for everything and asking if they can try to work together again to save their friendship. Just as Shiho seems to agree with his heartfelt plea, Tenji suddenly shouts that he is against it. Yuichi is surprised by Tenji's objection and immediately questions him, asking if he would be in trouble if they followed the plan. Internally, Tenji recognizes this as a provocation and concludes that Yuichi must be bluffing about knowing the traitor's identity, so he decides to challenge him directly. He puts a hand on Yuichi's shoulder and asks if he really knows who the traitor is. Yuichi smiles and says he does, but Tenji notices that he is shaking. Tenji presses him to name the traitor so they can finish the game, but Yuichi feigns sympathy for the culprit. At this, Tenji erupts in feigned anger, shouting that Yuichi is naive and that he cannot trust anyone anymore. He gives Yuichi an ultimatum: if his plan does not work after 1 round, he must reveal the traitor's name with proof, or Tenji will never trust him again. Yuichi firmly accepts the challenge, gripping Tenji's hand. Seeing that Yuichi will not back down, Tenji accepts the challenge in his mind, believing that if he can overcome this obstacle, victory will be his. Tenji agrees to follow Yuichi's plan. For the 8th round, everyone enters the stall to submit their papers. Afterward, Yuichi confirms with the group that everyone except the leader, Shibe, has submitted an entry against themselves. He states that there should be exactly 4 entries, and if there are any less, they will know who broke the promise. Manabu then announces the result. There are a total of 10 backbiting entries. As Yuichi stares in shock, Tenji smirks to himself, thinking that Yuichi's strategy had a major flaw. Manabu loudly expresses his disappointment in Yuichi, saying his brilliant plan turned out to be a complete failure. He points out the fatal error in his logic, Yuichi forgot the rule that players can write as many entries as they want at a time. Manabu mocks him, saying his strategy would have been perfect otherwise, and notes that someone in the group must have realized this flaw and exploited it. He ends by calling Yuichi stupid, a shadow of the amazing player he was in the first game. Tenji taunts Yuichi, saying he expected a better plan from someone who was so confident. A defeated Yuichi admits he did not see this outcome. Internally, Tenji celebrates, thinking he overestimated Yuichi and that he will now be the absolute winner. Yuichi then confesses to the group that he was bluffing and that he does not actually know if there is a traitor. Seizing the moment, Tenji puts an arm around Shiho's waist, telling her it is time for them to only think about saving themselves. When Shiho protests that Yuichi was just trying to help, Tenji shouts at her to open her eyes and accept that their friendship has already collapsed, but he promises to protect her. As he leads her away, he smiles, thinking to himself that he has won and no one can interfere with his purpose anymore. His thoughts turn dark as he reflects that he has been waiting for this chance for 2 years, ever since Shiho took the most important thing from his life. He has been planning his revenge ever since, and now all he needs to do is prepare the perfect stage to expose everything about her. In the screening room, one supervisor declares that Group C is beyond hope. The game's progression has been terrible, with the friends falling into silent distrust, playing right into the traitor's hands. The story jumps to the 19th round, where Manabu announces that Shiho is back in first place, just one step from the goal, which she must reach by jumping off the roof. Tenji feigns despair, apologizing to Shiho for not being strong enough to protect her, while internally celebrating that his dream is coming true. The supervisors also conclude that the game is over, as Shiho will inevitably reach the goal on the next turn, making her the sole loser. They state that the traitor's obsession has overcome Yuichi's wisdom. Just then, however, one supervisor gets an uncomfortable feeling and orders the footage of the entire second game to be rewound. As she watches, her shock turns to laughter. She declares that she almost missed it, and that this game is not over yet. She tells her confused colleague that if you watch the game again, you will notice 3 things that are obviously out of place, as the screens fill with images of Yuichi from every possible angle. The lead supervisor explains the 3 things that are out of place. First, Yuichi's actions were often suspicious and inconsistent. Second, he repeated certain actions that made no sense according to the rules. And third, she believes he is a uniquely preposterous and cunning player. While her colleague is skeptical, she tells her to keep watching to understand just how peculiar Yuichi is. At the same time, Tenji is celebrating in his mind, convinced he has won. He calculates that since Shiho is only 1 square from the goal, and everyone must move at least 1 space per round, her loss is now 100% guaranteed. Just as he thinks he can finally accomplish his goal, Yuichi speaks up, calmly saying he has a proposal. In the screening room, the lead supervisor whispers that it is starting. Tenji turns to Yuichi and dismissively reminds him of his earlier ultimatum, sarcastically asking if he has another supposed way to beat the game. Yuichi states that he does not have a way to beat the game, but he does have a way to make the traitor reveal themselves. An excited Shibe asks if he is serious, and Yuichi confirms he is. Internally, Tenji is immediately suspicious. He confronts Yuichi, asking if this is another one of his confusing plans and pointing out that even if they identify the traitor, it will not stop Shiho from reaching the goal. Shibe echoes this, asking what the point is. Yuichi then begins to explain his real strategy. He tells them to remember 2 things, the divine punishment that forces a caught liar into first place, and his earlier failed plan where everyone was supposed to submit a backbiting entry against themselves. He then makes a stunning declaration. By combining these 2 methods, they can eliminate the traitor from participation in the next game. His friends are left completely baffled, asking what he means. In the screening room, the supervisors watch, wondering if Yuichi's plan to have everyone but the traitor reach the goal is even possible. Yuichi explains his final strategy to the group. He instructs them to each put their name on a backbiting paper and all write the exact same sentence. A skeptical Tenji questions how such a convenient entry could exist. Yuichi then reveals the sentence, "I am the one who applied to participate in the Tomodachi game." He explains his logic. Only the true traitor, who started the game, will be telling the truth. Everyone else will be caught in a lie and will receive the divine punishment, forcing them to jump ahead of Shiho and into the lead. This will allow all the innocent friends to reach the goal together, leaving the traitor behind. Tenji points out a flaw, asking how they will prove they are lying, reminding them of what happened to Shibe. Yuichi delivers his final, checkmate move. He explains that for this particular statement, they will not need proof, because the game administrators themselves will know instantly who is telling the truth and who is lying. Yuichi confirms with Manabu that his plan is possible, as the administrators will know who is lying. He then tells his friends this is the best way to leave the traitor behind and move on to the third round with only real friends. Tenji makes one final objection, saying there is no guarantee everyone will write the entry. Yuichi counters that anyone who does not participate and allows Shiho to lose will also be considered a traitor. Forced to agree, Tenji is then put on the spot by Yuichi, who tells him to go first. Yuichi uses Tenji's own manipulation against him, saying that as the person Shiho trusts the most, he should lead the way to make her feel relieved. Trapped, Tenji takes a paper and enters the stall. Inside, he completely panics, realizing Yuichi has perfectly cornered him and that all of his plans are ruined. He knows that if he does not follow the plan, he will be exposed as the traitor, but doing so will also mean defeat. With less than 2 minutes remaining, his mind races to find a way out of the trap. In the screening room, one supervisor is amazed, believing this to be Yuichi's real strategy. The other disagrees, however, saying that if the plan were this simple, the 3 strange things she noticed about Yuichi's behavior would be meaningless, and she would not have called him so preposterous. Inside the stall, Tenji comes up with a new plan. He decides to write the entry as instructed, but when he is exposed, he will claim that he was framed. He exits confidently, bumping into a grinning Shibe on the way out. After Yuichi submits the last paper, Tenji mentally prepares for his performance, planning to cry hysterically to fool the naive Yuichi. Manabu then begins the final announcement. He states that for this round, there is only one backbiting entry. He reads the content aloud. I am the one who applied to participate in the Tomodachi game, and then reveals the name written on the paper, Tenji. A panicked Tenji shouts, asking why he was the only one who submitted an entry. He sees Yuichi, Shiho, Yutori, and Shibe all staring at him, and Yuichi simply smirks, reminding him of his promise to make the traitor reveal themselves. Internally, Tenji's mind shatters as he realizes he is completely busted. He decides his only option is to play dumb and beg for mercy. He collapses to his knees and starts crying, but Yuichi calmly approaches and tells him to stop. He says Tenji can make excuses later, but for now, he must answer a question. A terrified Tenji looks up, shocked by this cold, commanding version of his friend. With a dark expression, Yuichi asks him plainly if he is the one who applied to participate in the Tomodachi game. With nowhere left to run, Tenji confesses that it was him. He then breaks down completely, desperately asking when Yuichi figured it out, and what he has done. In the screening room, a confused supervisor asks her senior what is happening and if Yuichi knew Tenji was the traitor all along. The lead supervisor reminds her of the 3 tricks she had noticed earlier and tells her to just keep watching, as Yuichi is about to reveal his secret. In the game, a broken Tenji desperately asks what Yuichi has done. Yuichi smirks and explains that he had a feeling a traitor would act at the start of the second game, so he decided to try a few tricks in order to expose them. Hearing this, Tenji's mind flashes back to the conversation he eavesdropped on between Yuichi and Shiho after the first game. He remembers hearing Yuichi tell her he was going to use some tricks, and he now understands this has been his plan all along. Yuichi explains that after the first real backbiting entry, he began to cooperate secretly with Shiho. Tenji questions this, saying they never had a chance to talk while they were all suspicious of each other. Yuichi agrees and reveals their method. He used the backbiting papers themselves as a cheat sheet to pass instructions to Shiho. In the screening room, the lead supervisor confirms that this is the first of his 3 tricks. She replays the video of Yuichi in the submission stall during the 4th round and tells her colleague to watch closely. She points out 2 key details. First, that Yuichi takes 2 backbiting papers instead of 1, and second, that he is holding a pen. The junior supervisor, however, still does not understand the significance of these actions. The lead supervisor explains the first trick. She tells her colleague to remember what Yuichi said when he left the stall, that he had submitted a blank paper. She then points out the clear contradiction. The video shows him holding a pen, but his words claim he wrote nothing. She concludes that this inconsistency proves he was using the backbiting paper for a different purpose entirely. Back in the game, Tenji has the same realization. He states that he understands now. Yuichi must have written instructions on a backbiting paper and somehow passed it to Shiho. Yuichi explains that Shiho read his instructions in the privacy of the stall. He reveals that he did not trust her at first and gave her a test. He had instructed her to submit a specific secret that only the two of them knew, that Yuichi once went a week without bathing. He explains his logic. When two major secrets were revealed in that round, one about his bath and the other about Shiho's surgery, he knew the traitor must have submitted the surgery secret, since he could account for his own. That was the moment he confirmed Shiho was his ally. He then says his next step was to test Yutori. A shocked Tenji realizes Yuichi was eliminating suspects one by one. Yuichi confirms this and explains that when he was comforting the crying Yutori, he secretly passed her a note with instructions. The note told Yutori that Shiho was an ally and that she should pretend to be on bad terms with her to help expose the traitor. It also instructed her to submit a secret about Shiho for the next round. Tenji then has a horrified realization. He understands now that when Yutori was leaning against Yuichi, she was not just crying, she was secretly reading his instructions. Yuichi explains that he instructed Yutori to write the secret about Shiho's underwear. He knew that since both he and Shiho submitted blank papers in that round, the other secret about Tenji's age must have come from either Shibe or Tenji himself. Tenji argues that Yuichi had no opportunity to give Shiho new instructions, but Yuichi then reveals his second trick. He explains that when he slapped Shiho, he used that shocking moment to secretly pass her an instruction paper. In the screening room, the supervisor confirms this, noting that she now sees how Yuichi had been subtly manipulating the group's turn order all along as part of his larger plan. Yuichi delivers his final deduction to Tenji. He explains that with only Shibe and Tenji left as suspects, the answer became clear during the special chance. He reasoned that Shibe would never have volunteered to be nominated if he were the traitor, as the risk of his greatest secret being exposed was too high. Through this process of elimination, the only person left who could be the traitor was Tenji. Tenji asks if the fight between Shiho and Yutori was just an act, and if the flawed strategy was also part of the plan. Yuichi confirms that he knew his strategy had a flaw from the beginning and that he used it to test Tenji's motive. Since Tenji did not back down from a financially risky plan, Yuichi knew his goal was not about money. When Tenji asks why he was not exposed sooner, Yuichi explains that he was afraid a cornered Tenji would turn violent and reveal everyone's secrets, so he waited until the final round to isolate him. Tenji then points out a final, critical flaw. Since anyone can submit multiple entries, Yuichi's process of elimination was unreliable from the start. In the screening room, the supervisors identify this as Yuichi's final and most cunning trick. Yuichi agrees with Tenji's logic, and then reveals the true key to his plan. He says that because the process of elimination was not enough, he asked each of his friends to give him a proof of friendship during their individual tests to confirm their innocence. Tenji asks what the proof of friendship is. Yuichi tells him to look closer at their friends, and Tenji realizes that Shiho, Yutori, and Shibe are all missing their name tags. Yuichi explains his third and final trick. He asked each of them to give him their name tag as a sign of trust, and the three innocent friends agreed. He details how he convinced the suspicious Yutori by first explaining in a secret note that he already held Shiho's name tag, a fact Yutori could easily verify. After seeing the proof, Yutori gave him her tag when they hugged, and Shibe gave him his during the last round. In the screening room, the supervisors are amazed, wondering how he knew the debt would not increase by just holding the tags. One of them deduces that he must have experimented earlier by briefly giving his own tag to Shiho. When he got it back and saw his debt was unchanged, he discovered the loophole. She explains the technical reason. The tags have line-of-sight cameras, so the rule is only broken if someone actually looks at the back. Yuichi must have explained this in his notes, which is how he earned his friend's trust. The supervisors continue to analyze the video, deducing that Shiho must have removed her tag inside the stall. The lead supervisor then explains why she called Yuichi preposterous. It was not just his intelligence, but the root of his approach. She explains that he essentially took his friend's name tags hostage, a mean tactic that prevented them from betraying him. He started with Shiho, knowing she would agree because of her promise, which in turn pressured the others to hand over their tags to avoid being isolated. She concludes that Yuichi's methods are almost evil, as he expertly understands and exploits people's weaknesses and their fear of being alone. Back in the game, a defeated Tenji kneels on the ground. He says there is one last thing he does not understand. He realizes that Yuichi must have turned the others into allies one by one, starting from the least suspicious. This leads him to the conclusion that Yuichi must have considered him, Tenji, to be the most suspicious one from the very beginning. He looks up at Yuichi and asks if he made a mistake somewhere. Yuichi tells Tenji that it was not a mistake that exposed him. He explains that he became suspicious simply because Tenji was not acting like himself. The Tenji he knows is a smart, calm mediator who stops fights, yet in the game, he was the one who started a fight with Shibe. Tenji argues that he had good reason to be angry, but Yuichi clarifies that his suspicion was not about the anger, it was about the target of that anger. Yuichi lays out the fatal flaw in Tenji's plan. He asks how he could have possibly suspected Shibe of being the traitor in a game that requires exposing secrets. He explains that it is impossible for Shibe to be the traitor, because no one in their group ever tells him their secrets, a statement that greatly annoys Shibe. To prove his point, Yuichi gets confirmation from both Shiho and Yutori that Shibe is the last person they would ever confide in, leaving Shibe shocked and angry at this universal agreement. Yuichi explains that Shibe could never be the traitor because he has a loose tongue. He says that Shibe is too stupid and clumsy for such a role and must have only submitted an entry against himself to protect Shiho. To prove his point, Yuichi asks about the crude comments Shibe made to Yutori. Shibe confirms he was just trying to cheer her up in his own clumsy way. Yuichi turns to Tenji, pointing out how simple and honest Shibe's actions are. He admits that Shibe is so bad at acting that he only told him the final plan while Tenji was inside the stall. At this, Tenji begins to laugh hysterically. He finally understands his fatal mistake. He had tried to frame the fool, never realizing that Shibe's simple nature made him the one person who could never logically be the traitor. He laughs at the irony that the fool was the one who ultimately tripped him up. An upset Shibe then asks if everyone has been looking down on him this whole time, and Shiho and Yutori quickly rush to cheer him up. Manabu interrupts the group, reminding them that despite finding the traitor, Shiho is still going to be the one who loses the game. Yuichi, however, says he just needs to add the finishing touches and pulls Manabu aside to whisper something in his ear. In the screening room, the supervisors overhear this, and one urgently sends the other to confirm if what Yuichi said is true. A hopeful Shibe asks if Yuichi has a final trick, and he confirms that he has found the best way for no one to be unhappy. Just then, the confirmation comes through, and Manabu makes a stunning announcement. The game is over because Yuichi has reached the goal and cleared it on his own. As everyone stares in shock, Manabu explains. In the 7th round, Yuichi submitted a backbiting entry that was a provable lie. Therefore, he receives the divine punishment, and is moved one square ahead of the current leader, Shiho, which is the goal itself. A heartbroken Shiho then cries out to Yuichi, asking how this could possibly be the best way. Yuichi insists that his sacrifice is the best way. An angry Shibe grabs Tenji, demanding to know how Yuichi can let the traitor off so easily. Yuichi calmly replies that the group can decide whether to forgive Tenji while he is playing the 3rd game. He then adds that he has no right to condemn Tenji at all, because this game has reminded him of the kind of person he truly is. He asks Shibe to recall what he said when comforting him earlier, that he had done something terrible in his own past. Yuichi confesses that he has been hiding this secret from them, fearing they would abandon him, and says that in a sense, his betrayal is worse than Tenji's. When Shiho asks what happened, Yuichi explains that the backbiting entry he wrote about Shibe killing someone was a lie. He then reveals the shocking truth: he is the one who has killed someone. His friends stare at him in absolute horror, asking if he is a murderer. In the screening room, a supervisor looks at Yuichi's profile on a computer. She says that while she knew something happened in his past, she is shocked to learn that he has caused the death of 3 people, calling him not just preposterous, but a monster. Back in the game, Manabu tells Yuichi he is stupid for choosing to play the 3rd game alone, warning him that it is tough and painful and that he will soon regret his heroic sacrifice. Yuichi calmly asks if Manabu is sure that he is the one who will have regrets. He then delivers a chilling speech, stating that for him, friends are nothing but limiters that allow him to live a decent life and hide his true nature. He declares that in the next game, he will not have those limiters anymore. Looking directly at Manabu, he says he will mean business every step of the way, and that he is going to crush them all in the 3rd game, so they should get ready. Yuichi changes his tone, saying he does not want his debt to increase and that believing in friends has become a pain. A shocked Shiho questions how he can brush their friendship aside so easily. Yuichi recalls his mom's words that friends are more important than money, but admits he has reached his limit and would rather be alone than deal with the situation. Manabu taunts the other friends, reminding them that the third game is like hell and asking if they have anything to say to the friend they are sending to face it alone. They remain completely silent, and Manabu cruelly suggests it is because they cannot be friends with a murderer. Yuichi says he is relieved by their silence and tells them to forget him. In his final thought, however, he apologizes to his mom, thinking that this sacrifice is the only way he can truly protect them. With that, Yuichi jumps. The second game is officially cleared, but as punishment for finishing first, the entire 1.8 million yen debt accumulated from the penalty squares is transferred to Yuichi. Just as he is about to jump, however, Tenji shouts for everyone to wait, declaring that he cannot let Yuichi go by himself. He confesses to Manabu that he also lied during the game and demands to receive the divine punishment. Tenji explains his lie. His earlier claim of having romantic feelings for Shiho was completely false. He then reveals his shocking true motive. He wanted to destroy their friendships to keep one person all to himself, and the person he truly likes is Yuichi. Everyone stares in stunned confusion as he explains that he has always liked him but felt he had no chance. A skeptical Manabu accuses him of making up a desperate story just to join Yuichi at the finish line. Tenji replies that he just needs to prove it is true. He walks directly up to Yuichi and asks him if this is his first. A laughing Yuichi simply replies, "First what?" Tenji takes off his glasses, saying it is his first time, and he does not know how to do it properly. Before a confused Yuichi can react, Tenji leans in and kisses him. As everyone stares in amazement, Manabu announces that the gods have cast their votes and approved of this development. He tells them they can be happy and proceed to the third game together. Tenji leans back and tells Yuichi that with him by his side, he feels he can finally fight the real darkness of the Tomodachi game. With that, both Yuichi and Tenji jump from the rooftop together. An announcement declares the second game officially cleared, with a prize of 2 million yen acquired. As a punishment for finishing first, however, a debt of 900,000 yen is transferred to both Yuichi and Tenji. In the screening room, the supervisors comment on the incredible plot twist, speculating that Tenji must have his own deep, dark purpose for making such a move. After their fall, Yuichi and Tenji lie in the middle of a new area, and Yuichi drifts into a dream. In the dream, he is a young boy again, counting his money. His mom's voice asks if he is counting his money again, and he explains that he cannot help it, as he has to survive for 2 weeks on just that much. She tells him that while money is important, friends are even more important. A confused Yuichi asks what friends are and calls her auntie, earning him a light whack on the head. She reminds him that she is his mother now and asks him to try calling her mom. He hesitates but finally says it, bringing a big smile to her face. She explains that friends are people who make you feel relieved and happy, and who will stay with you when you are troubled or in pain, even if you do not give them money. She smiles, saying she has friends like that who still comfort her even though her condition has worsened. She mentions that her friends, Yu-chan and Ayumi-chan, are coming to visit on Wednesday, and Yuichi says he wants to meet them too. She thinks it is a good idea, as she wants to introduce the son she is proud of. As he gets up to leave, she stops him, reassuring him that one day he will be able to make friends who will accept him for who he is, regardless of his past. He leaves the hospital with her hopeful words in his mind, only to be stopped on the street by a man calling his name. Yuichi turns to the man and calls him sensei. The man asks how he is doing and what he plans to do, and Yuichi replies that he might have come up with something interesting. His eyes then pop open as he hears Tenji shouting his name. Tenji asks if he is okay, pointing out that he is sweating all over. Yuichi is disoriented for a moment, realizing it was all a dream. When he sees Tenji's face, however, he immediately scrambles 6 feet away from him. Tenji remarks that he was expecting that reaction. Yuichi demands to know where they are. Tenji says he does not know, explaining that he just regained consciousness himself but that it looks like they are inside a cave with iron bars, like a jail. Just then, Manabu's voice echoes through the space, noting that they are finally awake. He explains that they have to stay there while preparations are made for the third game and mentions a bag in the cave that they can inspect. Tenji picks up the bag and opens it, finding only a single bottle of water inside. Manabu informs them that they will stay in the cave for 3 days, adding that if Yuichi were alone, he would not have been given the water bottle, hinting this is part of why he could not have cleared the game by himself. With the game set to start in 72 hours, Manabu leaves them to enjoy their time together. Tenji notices Yuichi's uncomfortable expression and quickly reassures him, explaining that the kiss was just an act so he could go with him and that he is actually straight. A relieved Yuichi accepts this, and Tenji briefly mentions a past event turned him off girls but quickly changes the subject. As Yuichi notes that they have plenty of time, Tenji asks if he will listen to his story. He says he feels he can tell Yuichi everything, including why he betrayed their friends, why he is older, and what happened during his lost year. He then delivers a final, shocking revelation. This is his second time participating in the Tomodachi game. Tenji continues his story, explaining that one day, Shiho bowed and greeted his two friends, and they both immediately blushed. He tells Yuichi that after that simple greeting, their fund management began to fail. Within 3 months, their funds fell below 1.5 million yen, and his friends became obsessed with finding out if he was really going out with Shiho, ignoring the data. He had suspected they both had crushes on her, and this confirmed it. Desperate to not lose their friendship over a girl, Tenji told them the truth, that his engagement to Shiho was just an arrangement by their parents, and there was nothing between them. This was enough to convince them, and they refocused, managing to grow their funds to 3 million yen by the time they graduated from middle school. When they all went to the same high school, Tenji hoped they could finally focus on their dreams, but his friends proposed a new bet. They decided to split the 3 million yen, with each managing 1 million individually. The one who made the most profit on the way to their 20 million yen target would become the company's CEO. Tenji initially agreed, but his friends added one final condition: the winner would also earn the right to propose to Shiho. Tenji's friends enthusiastically agreed to the bet. Tenji, however, is skeptical, wondering why their shared dream is suddenly being entangled with a girl. He objects, telling them it is selfish since Shiho has not been told about any of this. His friends just laugh confidently, saying the story will simply end there if she turns them down. When Tenji continues to protest, his friends interrupt him, questioning why he is so worried if he has no special feelings for Shiho. They deliver an ultimatum: if he does not agree to the bet, they will abandon their dream of starting a company altogether. Struck by this threat, Tenji hesitantly agrees to the bet. Internally, however, he clenches his teeth, determined to not let their dream fall apart. Ironically, after the bet begins, their business thrives. Their funds increase so quickly that within a few months, they have exceeded the 10 million yen mark. For a time, Tenji believes everything will be fine as long as the three of them are together, and that they can just ignore the foreign substance of their rivalry. His hope is shattered one day when he is suddenly kidnapped and taken to a Tomodachi game venue. There, he learns a devastating truth: one of his friends has a 10 million yen debt, and their entire profit has been wiped out, turned into a massive liability in just a few days. Tenji explains to Yuichi that in his first game, he knew something was wrong. He suspected his two friends did something extremely risky, flustered by their desire to win the bet and get Shiho. Tenji tried to convince them to back out of the suspicious game, but they insisted that as long as they were together, they could do anything. Wanting to believe in their friendship, he reluctantly agreed. The result was a disaster. Manabu announced their loss, and the entire 20 million yen debt was transferred to Tenji alone, making him realize his friends had betrayed him from the start. 2 days later, he was released and warned not to tell anyone, with Manabu threatening that for a minor, they would take 20 million yen worth of his life. To his shock, the school was told they had been in a special class, and his two former friends had disappeared, revealing the terrifying power of the game's administrators. Unable to control his anger, he began stalking their old houses until he finally caught one of them. He confronted his former friend, demanding to know why he betrayed him and used their money. He finishes his story by asking Yuichi what he thinks the friend said. Tenji tells Yuichi that his former friend gave him a devastating answer: he had spent all their money on Shiho. He recounts how he beat the man, demanding to know what he meant, but the man was terrified, saying that the game administrators would get rid of him if he said another word. As a fearful Tenji continues his story, Yuichi listens with intense concentration. Tenji admits he was violent, but his friends still would not confess. Yuichi summarizes the situation, understanding that Tenji believes Shiho was involved and that this is why he lost his friends and his dream. Tenji corrects him, stating he is absolutely sure she was involved and that this is when he lost the most important thing in his life. He explains how he spent his days in fear, not just of the administrators, but even more so of Shiho. He recalls a day when she walked home with him, noting that he had not looked well and asking if it was because he had lost his friends. When he feigned ignorance, she pressed him, reminding him that the three of them were always together. He then lied, claiming he had not seen them in a long time, but Shiho immediately called him a liar, revealing that someone had seen him together with one of them. Tenji tells Yuichi how Shiho confronted him, asking what he and his friend had talked about. When he feigned ignorance, she reminded him that he could always talk to her because they were friends. He knew he could not ask her the real questions, terrified that the game administrators would get rid of him too. Tenji continues his story, explaining that he endured this fear for a while, with Shiho checking on him every day, until he finally broke his promise and told everything to the most important person in his life, his father. He describes his father as the smartest and kindest person he knew, someone who always had the right answer, and who raised him all by himself. Tenji explains that even after losing his friends, he felt he could start over as long as he had his father. His father listens to the entire story about the game and the 20 million yen debt without any anger or suspicion. Instead, he praises Tenji's bravery, hugs him, and tells him to leave the rest to him. Tenji felt a wave of relief, believing his father would handle everything. That day, however, his father went out and never came back home. The next time Tenji sees him, he is dead, lying on the ground in the rain as forensic investigators take pictures of the scene. Tenji asks what has happened and why his dad is dead. Shiho's father tells him that the autopsy ruled the cause of death as suicide, but Tenji insists his father was not the type of person who would do that. He thinks to himself that it is impossible, as he remembers his father saying he was going to Shiho's house to talk to her directly about the case right before he left. He wanted to vent his anger, but Shiho's dad only offered empty words of support. Tenji knew he could not tell him the truth, fearing the game administrators would get rid of him too, just like his dad. To find out the truth, he decided to investigate Shiho himself, enrolling in the same school and stalking her. His investigation was cut short when he received a message from an unknown sender, threatening to get rid of him if he did not stop snooping. At that point, he decided to participate in the Tomodachi game with Shiho, planning to force her into a situation where she would have to reveal her faults. Yuichi asks if this is his real reason, and Tenji confirms that it is. He acknowledges that Yuichi ruined his plans but then reveals a new piece of information, that Shiho has told one big lie since the game began. Yuichi asks what he means, and Tenji states that if he knew what it was, he would also believe she is the real traitor. He then gives Yuichi a final hint: their current total debt is 10.8 million yen. Yuichi immediately says that the numbers do not add up, and Tenji agrees that the calculation is wrong. When Yuichi asks how he even knows their official total debt, Tenji explains that the administrators revealed it after his second game in the past as well. To confirm, he asks Manabu, who annoyedly repeats that their group's current total debt is 10.8 million yen. A skeptical Yuichi questions if they can trust this number, but Manabu insists they would never lie about it as it would make the game dull. Tenji then uses his past as a warning, explaining that he once refused to believe the total, only to find out later that his friends were the ones who had lied about their own debts. Understanding the risk, Yuichi decides to recalculate their total based on everyone's claims. He states his own debt is 4.1 million, and Tenji's should be the same. He calculates that Shibe and Yutori, with their bonuses, should each have a debt of 2.2 million. Finally, he calculates that Shiho, even with her penalty, should have a debt of 6.2 million. He adds these numbers to get a total of 18.6 million yen, a full 8 million yen more than the official figure. Tenji concludes that this can only mean one thing: someone among them has lied about their debt. Yuichi agrees, and Tenji says they should recalculate while assuming some people have lied. He starts with Yuichi and Yutori, stating that since Yuichi sacrificed himself and Yutori was the fifth questioner, either had a reason to lie about their debts, which means the problem must be with the remaining three. Yuichi realizes that if Tenji knows about the debt reduction offer, it means he must have lied, and Tenji cuts him off to confess that this is true. He explains that his question sheet had the rule, so his debt was secretly reduced, and his current total is actually 2.1 million. Yuichi puts this aside for the moment, and they move on to Shibe. They both agree it is possible he lied too, with Yuichi guessing that he took the debt reduction without thinking and then lied on the spot when he got flustered. Assuming this is true, their new calculated total comes to 14.8 million, still 4 million yen short of the official number. Yuichi notes that no matter how they look at it, Shiho's claimed 6.2 million debt is too high. Tenji agrees, saying that if she had not received a penalty, her debt would be 2.2 million, which would make the numbers match perfectly. He then presents a final, shocking confession. He apologizes and admits that he was eavesdropping on Yuichi's secret conversation after the first game. Tenji continues to manipulate Yuichi, asking him what he thinks now about Shiho's tearful confession and suggesting that her words and expressions were all just a lie. Yuichi considers this and admits that if it were true, she would be a total crook. Tenji presses further, saying that if the earnest Shiho could tell such a lie, it must mean she has a dark side, a point which Yuichi seems to agree with. Yuichi then voices his own conclusion, stating that the only reliable truth is their debt total, and therefore, he cannot believe anyone completely. He points out that just as Tenji did unbelievable things, Tenji never expected that Yuichi himself was a murderer. This leads him to a final, critical question for Tenji. He asks why Tenji, knowing he is a dangerous man, would choose to come with him if it was not just to save him. Looking down, Tenji gives his true reason. He says it is because Yuichi declared he would crush the game. Tenji explains his only goal is to avenge his father, and to do that, he must find the truth about his death, with the only keys being Shiho and the Tomodachi game. He says he cannot rely on the law and must take risks to fight his indecent opponents. He then cuts to the chase and asks Yuichi to fight together with him, leaving Yuichi stunned and wondering if he is serious. Tenji admits that he knows Yuichi is dangerous, but he says he does not mind because Yuichi has the power to crush the game's administrators. Yuichi dismisses this, stating that no matter what Tenji says, he cannot believe his words. Accepting this, Tenji declares that he will prove himself with actions instead. In a desperate move, he shows the back of his name tag to Yuichi, revealing his 2.1 million yen debt. As Yuichi looks, the number instantly doubles to 4.2 million. Yuichi grabs the tag, shouting at Tenji for being an idiot and doubling his debt. Tenji says he does not care about the money, as long as Yuichi can believe him a little. He kneels, begging to join Yuichi's fight and offering to be used as a tool, calling him his last hope. Yuichi simply lies down, stating that they have 3 days, and he needs time to think. As the days pass and their water runs out, they bond over their shared experience with poverty. This leads Yuichi to ask Tenji for his definition of a friend. Tenji says he does not know, as he has tried not to think about it since his own friends betrayed him. Yuichi then asks a final, pointed question: if apart from Shiho, the rest of them are just strangers he met by accident during his quest for revenge. Tenji quietly agrees that he guesses so. Yuichi tells Tenji that is a lie, asking why he would choose them for the Tomodachi game if they were just strangers. He suggests it is because Tenji truly felt a friendship with Shibe and Yutori. Tenji admits they are idiots who open their hearts carelessly but does not deny the connection. Yuichi then makes Tenji promise that he will apologize to everyone when they get home. Although Tenji believes they will never forgive him, he agrees. In return, Yuichi promises to clear the 3rd game, explaining that if they lose, they will never see their friends again. He grabs Tenji's hand and declares they will work together. He then lightens the mood by telling Tenji he needs to apologize for stealing his first kiss, which makes Tenji laugh. Just then, Manabu's voice announces that the 3 days are over, and the iron bars lift. Weak but determined, they stand up and emerge into a forest-like area. A voice greets them, and when Yuichi calls out to Manabu, he is corrected and told to call him Sergeant Manabu. In the screening room, a new female supervisor arrives, announcing that the 3rd game is about to start, and asking how the famous Group C is doing. In the screening room, one of the supervisors leans toward the screen, stating that with only 2 players, the result is obvious. The other, a short-haired girl, confidently disagrees. The first supervisor questions this, arguing that the game favors groups with more members, but the short-haired one simply proposes a bet, mentioning that her team, Group K, has a genius among them. On the game field, Yuichi and Tenji stand face to face with this opposing team of 5. The members of Group K look at their 2 opponents, commenting on how cruel the matchup is and how they both look like bad news. Sergeant Manabu then officially begins the event, announcing that for the 3rd game, they will play the game of friendship, hide and seek. Yuichi asks who the new people are. Sergeant Manabu announces the start of the 3rd game, calling them pigs and introducing it as friendship hide and seek. He explains that their Group C will be competing against Group K, with the winning team clearing the game and the losing team facing a game over. Tenji finds this strange, reasoning that the goal of the Tomodachi game is to test friendship within a group, not against an opponent. Manabu argues that an opponent is the perfect way to test their friendship. He gives an example of a group with a traitor competing against a group of 5 true friends, explaining that the grass will truly look greener on the other side. Pointing his sword at Tenji, he says that this contrast will inevitably lead to jealousy. Yuichi correctly interprets this to mean it would be foolish to trust your own friends in such a situation. Manabu confirms this is his point exactly, stating that they must fight that feeling and trust their friends no matter how painful it is. He emphasizes that friendship hide and seek is a game that requires them to keep on waiting, and with the introduction over, he prepares to explain the rules. Sergeant Manabu explains the rules. He states that the 2 teams will play a game of hide and seek in the huge forest. 1 person from each team will be the hider, while the rest will be seekers who must find their opponent's hider. Tenji notes to Yuichi that since Group C only has 2 people, one will have to be the seeker, putting them at an obvious disadvantage. Manabu confirms this, explaining that the game is overwhelmingly disadvantageous for smaller teams, and that this is a consequence of them fighting amongst themselves in the previous game. Yuichi then understands why Manabu had told him it would be impossible to clear the 3rd game by himself. Manabu continues with the specific rules. The first is no violence. Players cannot torture their opponents to find the hider's location. The second rule is that once a hider has chosen their spot, they are not allowed to move for the rest of the game. Breaking either of these rules results in an immediate loss for the team. He then explains what they can do, revealing that all participants will be given a cell phone that they can use to call anyone they want. Sergeant Manabu then explains the rule about food, stating that plenty of it is available in the center of the forest. He specifically taunts Group C, noting they must be hungry after 3 days without eating, and adds that seekers are responsible for bringing food to their hiders. The next rule is a special privilege only for the hiders, the option to give up. He explains that if a hider feels they can no longer wait, they can push a special button at any time to forfeit, which results in an immediate loss for their team. He cruelly suggests this is an unavoidable outcome for those with incompetent teammates, and clarifies the button only works when pushed by the hider themselves. The final rule is a privilege for the seekers, the ability to switch teams. He then reveals the catch. Even if their new team wins, a player who switches cannot advance to the 4th game because their original team will have lost. Tenji questions this, asking if there is any point in switching teams at all. Sergeant Manabu explains that there is a point to switching teams. He reveals that if a traitor switches to the winning team, the debt they would have carried from failing the game can be transferred to their former friends on the losing team. He gives an example using Group C. If Yuichi is the hider and Tenji is the seeker, Tenji could switch to Group K immediately. If Group K then wins, all of Tenji's debt would be transferred to Yuichi. While Group C would fail the Tomodachi game, Tenji would at least end it with 0 debt. Manabu concludes that if the switch goes well, a seeker can easily remove their entire debt, effectively not losing the game completely. This revelation hits Tenji hard. He thinks to himself that this is the easiest way to escape the game with 0 debt, and it is exactly what his friends did to him the first time he played. He understands that this is the true nature of the Tomodachi game, forcing a choice between friends and money, and he considers it the worst well-made game he has ever seen. Sergeant Manabu specifically warns Group C that with only 2 members, they must be extremely careful, as a switch could easily cause them to lose everything. Tenji looks at him and firmly declares that he will never switch teams. Yuichi tells Tenji that he better not switch teams, or he will be in trouble. Sergeant Manabu then warns that even on a 5-person team, if all 4 seekers switch, their entire debt will be transferred to their lone hider, so they must not let their guard down. Tenji realizes that the hider is at a much greater risk because they cannot switch. Manabu explains the process for switching. A player must go to the center of the forest with an opponent and get their agreement, but he warns the decision is irreversible. Yuichi asks what happens if a switcher's new team loses. Manabu explains that the switcher would then take on the average debt of that losing team and be forced to return to their original team for the 4th game, where it is unlikely their friends would forgive them. He then adds a final, additional rule specifically for this game. Players are now forbidden from handing over, stealing, or taking anyone else's name tag, a rule he says was implemented because a certain someone recklessly took other people's tags in the last game, a clear reference to Yuichi. Sergeant Manabu adds that breaking the new name tag rule will result in an immediate loss for their team. He then says he is done explaining and is about to decide on the hiders, but first offers some encouraging news to Group C. He asks if they are sure they will be fine with only 2 members, explaining that another player is also alone and that he could make an exception and combine them into a team of 3. Internally, Tenji thinks this is a terrible idea, as taking on a complete stranger is far too risky. Yuichi, however, asks if the person is a girl. When Manabu confirms it is a cute little girl, Yuichi immediately agrees to let her join them. A worried Tenji protests, asking why and questioning if Yuichi still does not trust him, but Yuichi simply explains that the game is nearly impossible to win with just 2 people. Manabu then brings the girl in, and they are shocked to see it is one of the supervisors from the screening room. She introduces herself as Maria. As Group K looks on with jealousy, Maria approaches Yuichi and thanks him, saying she did not know what she would have done alone. Yuichi tells her not to mention it, and that they should just do their best together. In the screening room, the Group K supervisor declares that Group C is utterly hopeless and that her team will definitely win the game. The Group C supervisor notes that her colleague's confidence stems from Yuichi's earlier threat to crush the administrators, a statement which reached the higher-ups and led them to send Maria to observe him. The Group K supervisor calls Yuichi boring and careless for taking Maria in so easily, but the Group C supervisor hints that the whimsical Maria might prove to be a problem. The Group K supervisor then reveals the source of her confidence, explaining there is another way to clear the game besides trust, having an overwhelming genius lead the group, which her team has. She is certain she will win their bet, but the Group C supervisor smirks and delivers a chilling response, stating that not even a genius can kill a monster. This uncharacteristic confidence worries the Group K supervisor, who has never seen her laugh like this before. She is left to wonder what kind of person Yuichi truly is to inspire such a reaction. Sergeant Manabu says it is time to decide who will be the hider for each team. Tenji pulls Yuichi aside, asking why he thinks they cannot win and questioning if he has already noticed something peculiar about the game. Yuichi refuses to tell him yet, which makes Tenji anxious, and he reminds Yuichi that they should not do anything to create distrust. Their conversation is interrupted by the tall, giant leader of Group K. He advises them to give up as soon as possible, stating it is very unlikely they can win. Yuichi disagrees, saying that as long as they do not give up, they can always turn the table. The leader states this is impossible, vowing that if he is the hider, he will never give up, even if he dies. Another member of Group K agrees with his captain and then turns to Maria, offering to let her switch to their team at any time. The man then accuses Yuichi of glaring at him, but Yuichi calmly replies that his eyes have been like that since he was born. As the taunts continue, Tenji clenches his fists and declares that he will not give up either, as he is also betting his life on this game. Tenji tells Yuichi that he will be the hider, reasoning that he is the only logical choice since Yuichi must be the seeker, and they cannot trust Maria with the role. Sergeant Manabu announces the start of the 2-hour hiding period, and the 2 teams dash off in opposite directions. 2 hours later, Yuichi leads Tenji to a secure hiding spot inside a cave, reassuring him that he has kept Maria at a distance so she does not know the location. Tenji worries about their chances against a larger team, but Yuichi states they can only win if they play dirty. He tells Tenji that his only job is to endure and not push the give-up button, no matter what happens. Clenching the button, Tenji agrees, reaffirming his trust and calling Yuichi his last hope in avenging his father. A relieved Yuichi says they can now definitely win and tells Tenji he must leave. As Tenji settles in, trusting his friend completely, a long time passes. Yuichi does not come back, not even after 2 full days have gone by. In a very bad condition from hunger, Tenji lies against the cave wall, wondering why Yuichi has not come back after 2 full days. He considers that finding one person in such a huge area must be difficult, but he also has not sensed the presence of any of the 4 enemy seekers. He reasons that Yuichi should have at least taken a break to bring him some food and water. This leads him down a dark path of paranoia. He wonders if Yuichi has betrayed him and switched teams, but dismisses it, thinking it would not take 2 days to lead them to his location. A worse thought then enters his mind, that Yuichi is deliberately harassing him as revenge for his own betrayal in the second game. He imagines Yuichi feasting and laughing with the girl, while he starves. Overcome with anger, he reaches for the give-up button with a shaking hand, but stops himself. He realizes he is not thinking clearly because of his hunger, and needs to calm down. He then remembers the phone in his pocket. He thinks about how he wanted to call after the first day but resisted, not wanting to seem like he was doubting Yuichi. Now, after 2 full days of waiting, he decides it is time. He tells himself that he is just worried after 2 days, so there is nothing wrong with making a call. The phone rings, but Yuichi does not pick up. Growing more paranoid from hunger and thirst, Tenji desperately pleads for him to answer. Suddenly, the phone vibrates, and a relieved Tenji thinks Yuichi is calling him back. He quickly answers, but the voice on the other end is from a member of Group K. The caller cruelly informs him that Yuichi is planning to abandon him. Tenji immediately denies this, insisting that Yuichi must be busy looking for their hider. The caller refutes this, claiming that Yuichi has done nothing but sleep and feast with the girl. He even adds that Yuichi said he would never forgive Tenji for his betrayal in the second game and offers to pass the phone to a nearby Yuichi. The words crush Tenji, and his world feels dark and suffocating. He manages to decline the offer, stating that he will continue to trust Yuichi and wait for him. The caller says this is unfortunate and gives him a final, chilling warning: if he feels he cannot take it anymore, he should press the give up button, or he will die. A desperate Tenji laughs and screams, slapping the wall of the cave and praying for Yuichi to come back soon. Meanwhile, the members of Group K discuss their successful taunt. The one who made the call reports that Tenji is putting on a bold front but is clearly suffering after 5 days without food. They gloat, noting that all he can do is wait and trust his friend, a situation that will eventually make him lose his mind. The caller smirks, calling him a poor thing and stating that he is doomed to fail because of their perfect strategy. The scene then reveals the shocking truth: Yuichi and Maria are sitting calmly at a table, completely surrounded by the members of Group K. The story flashes back 2 days ago, right after the game started, where Juzo, the third-year student and leader of Group K, tells his team that he has a perfect strategy to win, and that their victory is certain. Hayakutaro expresses his complete faith in the captain, but Chisato tells him to wait for the details. K supports their leader, reminding everyone that the captain's instructions have led them to success so far, a point the serious Banri confirms. The captain, Juzo, then begins to explain his strategy. He reminds them that since this is a part of the Tomodachi game, it is a test of friendship, not a game of luck. He argues that relying on their greater number of seekers is not the way to win. He quotes Manabu's description of the setting as a huge forest and offers his key speculation: the forest is so immense that it is practically impossible for either 2 or 4 people to find a single person just by searching. Captain Juzo continues to lay out his strategy, explaining that the term huge forest is a hint that the game is not about blindly searching. He reveals the key, the rule that requires the seeker to carry food to the stationary hider. A team member immediately understands and teases Hayakutaro, who gets pissed off and insists he gets it. Another member points out that to make this plan work, they need to get to the central food location as quickly as possible. Juzo then assigns the roles. He orders Hayakutaro and Chisato, the fastest members, to go there first, while tasking the tactful K and Banri with finding an undiscoverable hiding spot for him. With the plan set, Juzo tells them it is time to do their regular thing before they move out. The members of Group K gather in a circle and cheer, showing their strong sense of solidarity before they depart. In the screening room, the Group K supervisor proudly points this out to the Group C supervisor, who observes that their bond seems more like a team than a regular friendship. The Group K supervisor confirms this, explaining they are all childhood friends from the same sports club, and their relationship is defined by discipline and a senior-junior hierarchy. She confidently declares the game will be over in 3 days because her team has figured out a perfect strategy that only they can use. The scene jumps to the 3rd day, and the 2 supervisors are seated and watching the game. The Group K supervisor points to the screen, noting that Tenji is clearly at his limit and will soon hit the give up button if he does not get supplies. She then reveals the core of their simple and perfect strategy: to win, all they need to do is follow the person who brings food and water to the hungry and thirsty hider. The Group K supervisor lays out her team's perfect strategy, explaining that finding a hider in the immense forest is impossible by searching alone. The only viable method is to follow the seeker who brings food to their stationary hider. She notes that Group K's 4 athletic members can easily tail Group C's 2 seekers in shifts, making it impossible for them to run away. This creates a perfect trap. If Group C moves to deliver food, they will be followed, their hider will be found, and they will lose. If they do not move, their hider, Tenji, will eventually break from starvation and press the give up button, and they will lose. She concludes that Tenji, who has already been without food for days, will reach his limit tonight. As night falls, a miserable and desperate Tenji is about to push the button. Just then, he hears a voice, and Yuichi appears, holding food and water. A relieved Tenji greets him, and Yuichi pours him some water, thanking him for trusting him and waiting. A hallucinating Tenji speaks to an imaginary Yuichi, reaffirming his trust. In the screening room, the supervisors watch him talking to himself, concluding that he is hallucinating from the stress and hunger. One of them feels sorry for him, finding it cruel that Yuichi has spent the past 2 days doing nothing but feasting, sleeping, and casually chatting with the opponents, seemingly abandoning his partner. The other supervisor explains that as a member of his team, Maria can only play along with him, but she has reported that Yuichi is crazier than she thought and a complete lunatic. The scene then cuts to the central food area, where the real Yuichi stands up and makes a shocking request to the members of Group K. He wants to switch teams. Back in the cave, a delusional Tenji laughs happily, taking a bite of an imaginary rice ball and telling the phantom Yuichi that it is to die for. The members of Group K are shocked when Yuichi makes his request to switch to their team. In the screening room, the Group K supervisor is furious, believing he is bluffing and that no one could be so maniacal as to abandon a friend who has trusted him for over 2 days. The Group C supervisor, however, calmly states that she can easily see Yuichi doing such a thing to accomplish his mysterious goals. The supervisors agree that if Yuichi is serious, Group K will almost certainly accept his offer, as his inclusion would make their victory a near certainty. The Group C supervisor adds that their decision will greatly determine the outcome of the game. Back on the field, Yuichi asks Group K if they accept his request, prompting one of them to ask him why he wants to switch teams. Yuichi explains his reason for wanting to switch, stating that he has a grudge against Tenji for destroying their friendship in the second game, and now wants to make him suffer in return. A member of Group K says this makes sense and explains why Yuichi has been neglecting his partner for the past 2 days. The group seems to agree that while they normally would not accept him, it is a necessary move for them to win. In the screening room, the Group C supervisor wonders if it is wise for them to make such an important decision so lightly. Back in the game, one of the boys interrupts, saying they should not be in such a hurry. He pulls out his phone and suggests they call their captain for advice, as he is the one who always makes the decisions for the team. Another member complains that making a call is a pain, but he is quickly scolded by his teammate, who reminds him that the captain's absolute authority is the only reason they have made it this far. The complaining boy quickly changes his mind, admitting it would be dumb to proceed without their leader's approval. As Group K decides to call their captain for advice, Yuichi suddenly starts laughing. When they ask what is so funny, he mercilessly mocks their inability to make a simple decision on their own, sarcastically wondering if they need their captain's permission for every little thing, even to eat breakfast or go to the bathroom. This enrages one of the members, Hyakutaro, who clenches his fist and calls Yuichi a jerk. Just as he is about to punch Yuichi, another teammate shouts a reminder of the no-violence rule, which would mean an automatic defeat for their team. The others quickly hold him back, and one of them prepares to call the captain right away. A member of Group K makes the call to his captain. In the screening room, the Group K supervisor remarks that her team almost lost due to the stupid accident, but the Group C supervisor suggests that Yuichi provoked them on purpose. The boy returns from the call with the captain's decision. He announces that their captain has rejected Yuichi's request to switch teams. The Group K supervisor is shocked, but the Group C supervisor says it is probably the right decision. The boy explains his captain's logic. Their leader is confident that his strategy is perfect and they will win without him, so they just need to believe in the plan. He adds that if Yuichi insists on switching, they must also make the girl, Maria, switch. The captain's reasoning is that if both seekers switch to their team, the hider, Tenji, will be left completely alone, making any of his tricks useless. Furthermore, the captain identified a potential trap. Yuichi could switch, learn the location of their hider, and then tell Maria, which would give Group C the victory despite the consequences for Yuichi. A member of Group K approaches Yuichi, suggesting they switch teams together. He tells Yuichi he has no reason to turn down the offer, since his stated goal is to get revenge on Tenji. Internally, Maria thinks that the leader of Group K is smart for figuring out this counter-strategy. She notes, however, that this outcome is also part of Yuichi's larger plan. The story flashes back 2 days, to a time when Yuichi and Maria were walking through the forest. She asks him what their plan is. Yuichi reveals the first step. For the next 2 days, they will do absolutely nothing. They will not search for the enemy hider, and they will not bring any food to their own hider. Internally, Maria wonders how Yuichi can be so confident. He continues explaining his plan, stating that by doing nothing for 2 days, they will give Group K the impression that they have no intention of fighting. Then, on the 3rd day, he will propose a switch. When Maria asks if he is going to betray his friend, Yuichi clarifies that the only thing he cares about is Group C's victory, and that he will do anything to win, a ruthlessness that impresses Maria. He explains that if his switch is approved, he will gather information on their hider and pass it to her. He predicts, however, that this plan will most likely fail because Group K has probably already figured out the perfect strategy, which is to simply follow whoever carries food to the hider. Maria is once again amazed that he has realized this. He explains his reasoning for this deduction. He says that in a normal game of hide and seek, a team would logically choose its smallest or smartest member to be the hider to minimize the chances of being found. He then points out the key piece of evidence. Group K did the exact opposite and chose their biggest member to be their hider. He concludes that this choice proves they knew from the beginning that the essence of this game was completely different from a normal game of hide and seek. Yuichi continues his explanation to Maria, adding that Group K must have realized the game was about endurance, which is why they chose their most patient member to be their hider. When Maria asks what they will do if the switching plan fails, Yuichi says he needs to confirm one thing first. He asks if she can agree to do anything in order to win. When she hesitates, he moves closer and asks bluntly for her absolute obedience. Internally, Maria wonders if he is threatening her but finds the situation fun and agrees, as long as they can win the game. A confident Yuichi smiles and promises victory if she obeys him. He then reveals his true plan to her. As she listens, Maria has a sudden realization. She now understands why he specifically asked if the new member joining their team was a girl. She thinks to herself that even with her prior knowledge, Yuichi is far crazier than she ever thought. Back in the present, Sergeant Manabu tells Yuichi to hurry up and switch teams. Yuichi, however, changes his mind, saying he is not going to switch after all and taunting the members of Group K by telling them they look so weak he can win easily. The comment enrages one of the boys, who is held back by his teammates just as he is about to become violent. As this happens, Maria thinks back to the plan Yuichi had explained to her 2 days prior. He had told her that his real strategy was to do nothing for 2 days except chat with, and occasionally anger their opponents, all while they were secretly looking for something. The scene then cuts to inside the cave on the morning of the 4th day, where Tenji has completely fainted from hunger and exhaustion. At the main camp, 2 Group K members prepare to bring more food to their captain, asking their teammates to keep an eye on Yuichi and Maria, who are seemingly sound asleep. One of the watchers, a sleepy Hayakutaro, is given strong coffee by his teammate to stay awake, and they reminisce about their old morning training. Suddenly Yuichi sits bolt upright, revealing he was not asleep at all. He looks at them and asks for confirmation that the 5 of them are part of the basketball club, leaving a shocked Hayakutaro to wonder how he is even awake. Yuichi apologizes for eavesdropping, and one of the Group K members tells Hayakutaro to watch him while he goes to check on Maria. Yuichi strikes up a conversation with Hayakutaro, confirming they are a basketball team aiming for the nationals. Hayakutaro speaks with admiration for his captain, explaining how he trains hard to make his leader's final game meaningful. When Yuichi asks who among them was in debt to begin with, the other boy returns to switch places with the now uncomfortable Hayakutaro. As Hayakutaro goes to check on Maria, he is shocked to find she is not in her bed. He searches for her, only to stumble upon her in the middle of the forest, wiping herself down in her undergarments. Completely flustered, he stammers that he was not looking and runs away. He returns to his teammate, his face beet red, who asks what is wrong and reminds him he was supposed to be keeping an eye on Maria. A flustered Hayakutaro tries to explain, but his teammate says he will go instead, which only earns him the label of pervert. In that moment of chaos, a wide smile appears on Yuichi's face, and he suddenly shouts that he has found it, calling out for Maria. The 2 Group K members are confused, but as Yuichi grabs a bag and dashes away, they split up, with Hayakutaro chasing Yuichi and the other going after Maria. Hayakutaro pursues Yuichi, while his teammate chases a panting Maria. The 2 fugitives eventually meet up and continue running together, with their pursuers close behind. The Group K members smirk, thinking Yuichi's plan was simply to split them up and that he has now made a mistake by running down a narrow path with no escape. Yuichi smirks back over his shoulder, telling them that everything is according to his calculation and that when he shouted he found it, he meant something else entirely. In a shocking move, he then suddenly pushes Maria off a cliff, casually saying his hand slipped as she falls, leaving everyone stunned. Everyone is amazed as Yuichi pushes Maria from the cliff, her clothes flying up as she falls. Meanwhile, a delirious Tenji is at his breaking point in the cave. He holds the give up button, thinking he has done enough, but he remembers that Yuichi is his last hope. He reaffirms his decision to trust him and bets his life on that hope, rolling the button away. As he closes his eyes, he apologizes to his father and his friends in his mind, glad that he can end his life without betraying anyone else. His consciousness fades into darkness until he feels water on his lips. He opens his eyes to see Yuichi pouring water into his mouth and telling him that he is back. After some time, a recovered Tenji is eating, surrounded by food wrappers. He listens as Yuichi explains the situation, and he understands that his friend could not come sooner because he knew the opponents would follow anyone who tried to deliver food to him. Yuichi confirms his friend's deduction. Tenji complains that he should have told him on the first day to avoid the suffering, but Yuichi apologizes and admits he did it on purpose as a test. He wanted to see if Tenji would push the give up button when driven to the wall. Tenji asks what would have happened if he had been weak or careless and pressed the button. Yuichi simply smiles, stating that he did not, and that in order to keep his promise, Tenji bet his life. He says he is happy to learn that the Tenji he knew from school was not a complete lie and that from now on, he will trust him too. Tenji looks down, saying it is not easy to get back what you have lost once. Yuichi agrees but clarifies that his newfound trust in Tenji does not mean he will stop trying to find out the truth about Shiho. Tenji is fine with that. He then notes Yuichi's ridiculously perfect timing, and Yuichi admits he actually watched him for 10 minutes after arriving. With the tension broken, Tenji asks if they can win. Yuichi confidently states that half of the strategy was successful the moment he came back. When Tenji asks how he managed to trick their opponents, the scene cuts to the two members of Group K, panting and exhausted, shouting about what Yuichi's problem is. A member of Group K says that something is wrong with Yuichi. The scene flashes back to the moment after Yuichi pushed Maria from the cliff. As she falls, Hyakutaro instinctively stops and grabs her hand. The other boy, Chisato, tells him to let her go so he can continue the chase, but Hyakutaro refuses, shouting that he cannot let a girl get hurt in front of him. After a brief argument, Chisato reluctantly agrees to help pull her up. Internally, Maria thinks that while she is not thrilled with Yuichi's methods, his plan to stop their pursuers has worked perfectly. The story returns to the cave, where Tenji calls Yuichi's plan a reckless bet. Yuichi corrects him, stating it was not a bet but a calculated move, as he was certain at least one of them would definitely stop. He then reveals his true strategy of the past 3 days. He was not just cornering Tenji, but was also observing the personalities and relationships of their opponents. He explains that he deliberately approached them, provoked them, and even told them information about his own team, all to watch their reactions and find the one thing he needed for his operation, or rather, the one person. Yuichi explains that the person he was looking for was Hyakutaro. He says he observed him and found him to be the most compassionate and sensitive person on the other team, naive with girls and someone who would definitely stop to save Maria. He then analyzes the second chaser, Chisato, as a jack of all trades, master of none type who is weak against the words of honest people and not cold-hearted enough to abandon a teammate in need. A stunned Tenji is amazed by Yuichi's ability to analyze people but also feels a sense of discomfort at how expertly he spots their weaknesses. He asks Yuichi how this can be considered a successful operation. Yuichi confidently replies that escaping was only half the plan and that from this point on, it is his specialty. He says that now that he has bought them time, there is only one thing he needs to do to win: destroy their relationship and throw them into chaos. He reveals that he also spent the past 3 days setting traps that should already be in motion. The scene then cuts to Maria touching Chisato's hand and thanking him for being her savior, leaving him confused. Left alone, Tenji thinks about Yuichi's last words, that the first trap should now be in motion. He cannot imagine what his friend has done, but he knows that Group K's once strong bond has weakened in just 1 day. The scene shifts to the members of Group K, where Chisato shouts at Hyakutaro, demanding to know why he would even think of it. Hyakutaro shouts back for him to shut up, stating that he has made his decision and that Chisato will never understand his feelings. He then declares to Sergeant Manabu that he is switching to Group C. As this happens, an evil smile appears on Yuichi's face. The scene flashes back to Yuichi explaining his plan to Tenji. He reveals that his strategy is a honey trap and reminds Tenji of the crucial question he asked Sergeant Manabu before Maria joined their team, confirming that the new member was a girl. The plan is then shown in action as Maria touches Chisato's hand, calling him her savior. A confused Chisato says Hyakutaro is more qualified, but Maria coldly states that she hates Hyakutaro for peeking at her when she was naked. A frantic Hyakutaro tries to defend himself, explaining he only saw her in her underwear by accident. After some prodding, however, he breaks down and kneels, tearfully admitting that he remembers it clearly, and it is burned into his memory. Maria then suddenly smiles, revealing it was all a joke and calling Hyakutaro her precious savior too, leaving him completely flustered. Chisato then changes the subject back to Yuichi, asking Maria about him pushing her from the cliff on purpose to stop their chase. Chisato asks Maria what would have happened if Hyakutaro had not reached out to save her. This makes Maria look shaken, and Hyakutaro, thinking she is scared, calls Yuichi an unforgivable scum. Maria, however, defends Yuichi, which confuses Hyakutaro. Chisato decides there is no point in staying and that they should return to the food spot. As they are about to leave, Maria pretends to be slightly hurt, causing both boys to stop in concern. Hyakutaro kneels down and offers her a piggyback ride. As she gets on his back, Chisato teases him for his surprising romantic side. A blushing Hyakutaro tells him to shut up, explaining that his grandmother taught him to be nice to women. Maria then leans into him, telling him how nice he is and wondering aloud why she has to be a part of Group C. When they get back to the main area, they explain the situation to Kei. He realizes that Yuichi is more dangerous than he thought and worries that now that Group C has their food, the game will take even longer. Yuichi returns to the main area, stating that he does not mind a protracted war. An angry Hyakutaro shouts at him for acting like nothing happened, but Yuichi retorts that he can do whatever he wants. He casually sits down, puts his hand on Maria's shoulder, and declares they are back to square one. Hyakutaro tells him to get away from her, pointing out that she is shaking, but Yuichi just pushes Maria, forcing her to whisper that she is fine. When Hyakutaro calls him a jerk, Maria stops him from becoming violent, saying it would only be doing Yuichi a favor. An enraged Yuichi then grabs Maria by the hair, asking why she interfered. Kei points this out to Sergeant Manabu as an act of violence, but Manabu clarifies a crucial loophole. The rules only forbid violence against the opposing team, not against one's own teammates. Yuichi exploits this, pulling Maria's hair harder and saying that no matter what he does to her, he is not breaking the rules. As everyone watches in shock, Hyakutaro has a realization. He thinks this must be why Maria said she did not want to be in Group C, and he shouts for her to switch and join their group. Chisato tries to stop him, but Hyakutaro reminds him of his earlier promise to accept her. Chisato, however, says something feels weird and too good to be true, leaving a confused Hyakutaro to ask what he means. Chisato suggests that Maria is just acting, which infuriates Hyakutaro. Chisato mocks him, saying a virgin like him would not understand how shrewd women can be. The argument escalates until an enraged Hyakutaro grabs Chisato's collar, only to be reminded that violence between teammates is not allowed. Kei steps between them, breaking up the fight and stating that their captain always makes the final decisions. Yuichi seizes this opportunity to taunt them, calling them pathetic for needing their captain Sama's permission to protect a single girl. The insult works perfectly on Hyakutaro, who declares that he will call the captain himself to persuade him. Kei agrees that talking to their leader directly is the best way. Before he and Hyakutaro depart, Kei instructs Banri and Chisato to watch Yuichi and Maria. As they leave, Hyakutaro turns to Maria and promises he will convince the captain, asking her to bear with it a little longer. Internally, Yuichi thinks that everything is going according to plan. He has successfully made the relationship between Chisato and Hyakutaro fragile. He analyzes that while people with different personalities can work together for a common purpose, their bond will collapse once they are divided, and that in Group K, the pillar holding them together is their captain. This group revolves around their leader, who makes all the important decisions for them, but Yuichi has identified this as their greatest weakness. He believes that the captain's absence, combined with the stress of the game and Hayakutaro's budding feelings for Maria, will cause them to crumble. He predicts that the captain will likely accept Maria's switch because she seems less dangerous than him. However, Yuichi knows that, as they have planned, Maria will ultimately turn down the proposal. Yuichi continues his internal monologue, laying out the rest of his plan. He predicts that when Maria rejects the offer to switch teams, a persistent Hayakutaro will press her for an answer. Maria will then tell the gentle Hayakutaro about her supposed weakness, a shocking secret prepared by Yuichi. Because Yuichi has already established himself as a terrible person, he is certain Hayakutaro will believe her instantly, become enraged, and hit him, causing Group K to lose the game. He anticipates that his friends will stop him the first time, but he plans to continue harassing Maria, knowing the repeated cycle will eventually break their relationship and lead to his real goal, forcing Hayakutaro to switch teams. A few hours later, Kei and Hayakutaro return. Hayakutaro delivers the news: their captain has rejected Maria's switch. As Chisato tries to console him, Hayakutaro pushes him away and reveals the captain's alternative, that if he wants to protect Maria no matter what, there is one other way to do so. A smirk appears on Yuichi's face as his prediction comes true. As Hayakutaro steps forward, Chisato tries to stop him, but Hayakutaro tells him to shut up, saying he has made his decision. He then declares to Sergeant Manabu that he is switching to Group C. Yuichi immediately approves the switch, and Sergeant Manabu announces that Hayakutaro is now officially a member of Group C. As he switches, Hayakutaro tells his old team that he is sorry but does not intend to cooperate with his new group and is ready to have his debt increased when Group K wins. Yuichi welcomes him, but Hayakutaro immediately turns and tries to punch him, shouting that he can now hit him without breaking the rules. Yuichi easily dodges the attack, grabs him by the collar, trips him, and headbutts him. Yuichi pins Hayakutaro's hands, saying he knew this would happen and that to prevent any more violence, he will have to tie him up. Later that night, Yuichi calls Tenji and updates him, explaining that while something unexpected happened, he successfully made one of them switch teams and now just needs to get the location of their hider to win. Tenji warns him not to be too reckless. Meanwhile, Hayakutaro is tied to a tree, and Maria sits beside him, apologizing and saying it is her fault. He apologizes as well, ashamed that he failed to protect her. Maria reassures him that he is cool but warns him that Yuichi will do terrible things to find out the captain's location. Hayakutaro says he has guts and will not break, but Maria tells him that it is not going to work. Maria continues to manipulate Hayakutaro, warning him that Yuichi will do anything to win and has even killed someone in the past. Unbeknownst to them, Yuichi listens to their entire conversation through Maria's open phone line, and a smile crosses his face as he hears Maria advise Hayakutaro to give up the captain's location to avoid pain. Yuichi believes he has won, but his plan shatters when Hayakutaro confesses that he cannot betray his captain because he does not even know where he is hiding in the first place. The revelation leaves Yuichi completely stunned. In the screening room, the Group K supervisor sees his pale face and remarks that the real genius has finally started to move. The scene then cuts to the captain, Juzo, in his hiding spot, speaking with K, who confirms he followed the captain's instructions to urge Hayakutaro to switch teams. The captain then scolds K for speaking too casually when they are alone, and K apologizes, calling him Prince, revealing a hidden and unusual dynamic within their group. In the screening room, the Group K supervisor laughs at Yuichi's stupid-looking face, saying he stood out too much and that the real genius is the one who controls everything from the shadows. Back in the game, Yuichi asks Hayakutaro why he did not go to see his captain in person as he had planned. Hayakutaro explains that they were on their way, but Kei received a phone call telling them to come back because Yuichi was acting suspiciously, so they called their leader instead. At that moment, Yuichi's phone rings. He answers, and the person on the other end is Kei. Yuichi immediately realizes that Kei is the true leader of Group K, a fact Kei confirms. Yuichi admits he underestimated them, and now sees that Kei has been controlling his team's actions at every important point. He vows to not make another mistake and to proceed while acknowledging Kei as his rival. Kei, however, mocks this, telling him their victory was confirmed the moment Yuichi pulled the bomb called Hayakutaro onto his team. He adds that he is sure the sharp Yuichi understands what this means, and as he speaks, a horrifying realization strikes Yuichi. Maria asks what is wrong, and Yuichi tells her that they have been beaten and will definitely lose. Kei cuts the phone, and Juzo notes that he looks happy. Kei admits that he is having a lot of fun, grateful that Yuichi's unique behavior has kept him from being bored, but says that it is over now and time for their final plan. Kei explains to the confused Juzo that victory is certain because of two key factors. Hyakutaro has switched to Group C even though he does not want to betray them, and the rule that ends the game immediately if someone is violent towards an opponent. Juzo understands now why Hyakutaro is a bomb. Kei laughs and tells him to give instructions to the team while he goes off on his own to find their hider and secure a complete victory. In the screening room, the Group C supervisor asks who Kei really is. The Group K supervisor explains that he is a simple genius who can do anything he sets his mind to, but his only weakness is that he gets bored easily. She speculates that he is only participating in the Tomodachi game to kill time. In the screening room, a supervisor explains that the genius, K, has been controlling Group K from the shadows by manipulating their trusted leader, Juzo. Back in the game, a frustrated Yuichi tells Maria that this is the worst-case scenario. He explains that Hyakutaro has become a bomb, as he is now a member of Group C. If he acts violently towards any member of Group K, Group C will lose immediately. Yuichi admits his original plan was to simply tie him up, assuming they would win quickly, but now they are trapped, unable to move from that spot as they must watch him 24 hours a day. Just as he considers the possibility of hiding Hyakutaro somewhere, he realizes it is too late, as a voice rings out and they see that Chisato has already arrived. Chisato says they have already received instructions from their captain and that their opponents are as good as dead. As they begin their test of endurance, Maria gets up to leave, telling Yuichi not to ask a lady such a question. She walks away, thinking she is sick of the stalemate, but is startled when Kei appears behind her. He apologizes and says he was waiting for her to be alone. He then gets straight to the point, stating that he knows she is one of the game's administrators. A shocked Maria asks how he knew, and he explains his deduction. He points out that while the number of participants for the third game was determined by the second, she was alone, yet she showed no signs of hunger or exhaustion after the 3-day food restriction. He reasoned that this was too strange for a regular participant, so she must be from the management side. Taking a deep breath, Maria admits he has got her and asks what he wants. He claps, amused by her easy confession, and then gets to his point again. He wants her to betray Yuichi. Kei continues his attempt to persuade Maria, telling her that since Group K's victory is now certain, it would be unnatural for her not to betray Group C and join the winning side. Maria expresses concern that a sudden betrayal would contradict the innocent personality she has been playing, but Kei says he understands her true nature, someone who prioritizes fun over logic. He tempts her with a final, cruel offer, the chance to see Yuichi's confident and sadistic face turn into that of a pathetic crybaby after he is completely defeated. Following this conversation, Maria calls Yuichi. He answers, confirming that while they are being watched, their conversation is private. She then asks him for Tenji's hiding place, giving the excuse that she is alone and wants to bring him food to buy them more time, saying she is sure Yuichi can come up with a solution if he just has enough time. Yuichi agrees and tells her where to find him. As soon as he cuts the phone, Maria turns and runs directly towards the waiting members of Group K. Yuichi sees Maria with the members of Group K and asks why she is talking with them. In response, she simply gives a thumbs up to Kei. A horrified Yuichi kneels down, shouting in despair as he realizes she has betrayed them. Kei remarks that based on his reaction, Yuichi must have told her the real location, and he orders his team to go find the hider. As night deepens, awaiting Tenji wonders why Yuichi is so slow and not picking up his calls. His phone then rings with an unknown number. He answers, and it is Kei, who begins to taunt him, calling Yuichi the worst and advising him to quit being his friend. An enraged Tenji shouts at him to shut up, declaring that he is betting his life on Yuichi. Kei thanks him for the clear response, and says that because of the shout, he was able to find him. As he says this, Kei appears at the entrance to the cave. Sergeant Manabu's voice then echoes through the area, announcing that the third game has ended. As Kai finds Tenji, a call from Sergeant Manabu announces that the game is over and everyone must return to the center. Kai extends his hand to the staggering and defeated Tenji, telling him not to be too disappointed and that they were simply the better team. A devastated Tenji clenches his teeth and shouts in frustration, believing Yuichi has lost. At the central point, everyone gathers, and Sergeant Manabu makes a stunning announcement: the winner of the third game is Group C. Everyone is shocked, and Kai shouts that it is impossible since they found the hider first. Sergeant Manabu confirms this but explains there is another factor that determines the winner. Jara then confesses that he pushed the give up button, apologizing to his team but then turning his rage on Yuichi, grabbing him by the collar, and calling him a scumbag as Yuichi just laughs. The story flashes back to just before the game concluded, where a seemingly defeated Yuichi tells the tied-up Hayakotaro that their victory was certain the moment he switched teams, his eyes like those of a villain. At the same time, Jaro receives a phone call in his hiding spot. It is Yuichi, who calmly tells him to press the give-up button. When Jaro refuses, Yuichi delivers a chilling threat: if he does not press the button, he will beat Hayakotaro until he does. Jaro tells Yuichi he is bluffing, but Yuichi replies that he is not and will give Hayakotaro the first blow. A sound like someone being hit is then heard through the phone. Yuichi states that he will hit him once every minute, and after another minute, a second punch is heard. A skeptical Jara tells him it is useless, but Yuichi continues the assault, and Hayakotaro's shouting is heard. Jara points out that he is not screaming in pain, but Yuichi claims he is just strong and briefly puts him on the line. Hayakotaro bravely tells his captain that he is fine and that he should never push the button. In the screening room, the Group K supervisor calls Yuichi a demon. Jara begins to believe Yuichi might really be hitting him and tells Hayakotaro to hang on a little longer. But Hayakotaro laughs, saying he is not really being hit after all. Yuichi states that another minute has passed, and after a third hitting sound, he declares it is time to go to the next level. He tells Jara that from now on, he will break things that cannot be repaired. When a confused Jara asks what he means, Yuichi reminds him that they are all part of the basketball team. Yuichi continues his threat, reminding Jara that Hayakotaro has been training hard to make up for a past failure, and that a broken finger could end his basketball career forever. Jara calls Yuichi a scumbag, but Yuichi simply starts a 10-second countdown. Jara's mind flashes back to Kei's strict orders to not press the button no matter what, reminding him that their victory is paramount and that if they lose, they may never see each other again. As the countdown continues, Jara hears Hayakotaro's muffled struggles through the phone, followed by a sickening snapping sound. Yuichi's cold voice then asks which finger he should break next, promising to keep breaking them until the button is pushed, and an overcome Jara screams for him to stop. The story returns to the present, where Kei assumes this is when Jara pushed the button. Yuichi corrects him, however, saying Jara was still hesitating, so he used a final trump card designed to completely break a person's heart. The scene flashes back one last time to the phone call, where Yuichi tells the crying Jara that he is not the worst one, Jara is. He states that Jara is the source of the problem and offers to explain it simply. The reason Group K is participating in the Tomodachi game in the first place is because of their captain's debt. Kei admits that Yuichi has figured it out. Yuichi then explains his deduction, noting that the topic of debt was clearly taboo within Group K. He reasoned that the debtor must be either the captain, Jaru, or Kei himself. He initially thought Jaru was protecting Kei, but after observing their interactions, he realized their master-slave relationship was the opposite of what it seemed, which meant the debtor could only be Jaru. Jaru confesses that this is true, explaining that his parents' business was in debt, and he was about to quit high school, but Kei promised to help on the condition of his complete obedience. After apologizing to his team, Jaru's demeanor suddenly changes, and he shouts that he still cannot believe Yuichi, punching him in the face and calling him a coward for using people's weaknesses. Hayakotaro immediately steps in and stops him. A confused Jara asks why he is stopping him, bringing up the fact that Yuichi broke his fingers. Hayakotaro, however, shows that his fingers are perfectly fine. Jaru is stunned, remembering the sickening snapping sound he heard over the phone. He looks at Yuichi's hand and has a horrified realization. Yuichi quietly admits that he broke his own fingers, explaining that he also has a reason why he cannot lose and that this was the only method he could think of. A shocked Jara then turns to Hayakotaro and asks why he did not tell him. Hayakotaro explains that Yuichi had promised to let Jara hit him as much as he had been hit, which leaves everyone in a stunned silence. Sergeant Manabu officially announces that Group C has won the third game, but a furious Kei refuses to accept defeat and blames his teammates for being burdensome. Banri suddenly smacks Kei, telling him to give it up and explaining that Jara made the right choice to save Hayakutaro. The other members of Group K agree, and Banri tells K that the experience of losing will be an asset for him someday. As Manabu calls the losing team over, a defeated Jaro offers to take on all the remaining dead himself so the others can stay together, sacrificing his own dream of playing in their final tournament. Meanwhile, Maria approaches Yuichi and asks if he knew who she really was. He smiles and confirms that he knew she was an administrator, explaining that he realized it because she carried out his difficult instructions so perfectly. He adds that this is also why he pushed her off the cliff without hesitation. Hearing this, an annoyed Maria calls him mean. Maria asks Yuichi about his reaction when she betrayed him, and he explains it was just an act of convenience to keep an eye on Group K. He then tells her to pass a message to the higher-ups that he will definitely crush them. As she leaves, an impressed Maria smiles, thinking he might actually be able to do it. Tenji then helps Yuichi stand, telling him that despite his methods, he is still a nice person because he did not actually break Hayakutaro's fingers. Yuichi thanks him but thinks to himself that he might have really broken them if Jara had hesitated any longer, questioning if he is truly a good person. Sergeant Manabu announces that they have cleared the third game and will be temporarily released, warning them not to tell anyone about the game or run away. Back in the real world, Yuichi and Tenji head to their classroom, hoping to find Shiho. Instead, they slide the door open to a shocking sight. They find Yutori standing in front of a desk covered in cuss words, crying. She collapses to the ground and tells them that Shibe and Shiho are gone.